So we just got done, relatively speaking, doing a Batman movie tier list, and I think that was the first time we'd ever done something like that. That wasn't video games, and we decided, you know what, that was a lot of fun, so we should tackle that again, or do something similar. And I don't think we intentionally set out to do Batman, but this was the best thing that we could come up with that fit our basically what we were interested in talking about, and it's certainly a lot. This is Batman the Animated Series, the is it 92 cartoon show?
93, I believe.
93. Yeah, it was just a really, really good cartoon show.
92. No mistake.
Yeah, I feel like it kind of speaks for itself. It's just the first of the it was the first, right? The DC animated sort of series that they had done. Like, they didn't want to do like Superman, Batman Beyond, like
Justice League.
Yeah.
The weird ones like the Zeta Project and Static Shock.
Oh, right. But yeah, I remember seeing some of this show when I was younger, but I didn't remember too much of it. But I do remember it being very good. And then at some point, I went back and just rewatched like a bunch of these DC animated shows. I did. I think I did some Superman episodes. I watched some of this. I watched all of Batman Beyond, and I watched all of Justice League. And honestly, stuff is for the most part, it holds up really well. I didn't remember it too well, but I do remember liking it for the most part. And so we decided, hey, why not? Let's do a tier list of like an entire season, or just a significant amount of Batman the Animated Series, which turns out is season 1 is 65 episodes.
Yeah, we just like figured out how to review a series of movies. So let's, instead of refining that and doing more movies, let's just do a completely different medium with a completely different structure.
Yeah,
that's the natural step, right?
So I can't even begin to guess how long this is going to take. Hopefully we don't spend too much on per episode as we did with like movies. But yeah, we just, and this one we didn't do like the bingo card thing. What we really just did was, for each episode, we just had like a notepad, and you'll probably be seeing that on screen here. Just notes about every episode. Like, we're just anytime we had like anything interesting to say about an episode, we'd write it down. And then 50% of it is a shitpost. And then we also kept track of who appeared in what episode. And then wrote down some kind of initial tier, plus and minuses, that kind of sort of thing. And so we're probably just gonna use that as a basis for our tier list. I don't imagine us reevaluating a lot of this.
No. I mean, maybe some things might shift slightly based on, like early things we've watched in relation to, having seen the end of the season, but yeah, not much.
Definitely gonna be a lot of horizontal position. And that's about it. I guess there's not really much more to say other than, There's
a little bit of ambiguity about the release order.
Oh, yes.
As you found.
Yeah, so the order that we used is it's actually, we watched this on Netflix, and they have it in the same order that is listed on Wikipedia. Those are actually, I don't really know. Those are just like DVD, the order on the DVD, I guess, but they're not the order that they were aired in. I guess we'll get to it when we get to it, but there's a very weird episode that they aired first, apparently, and then it like kind of matches I guess what I assume is the production order. And then it goes kind of crazy, and then like there are episodes that we watched that on IMDb, which is the air order are considered part of season 2, and episodes that we didn't watch that are considered part of season 1. And so it's very, very weird. And so, but we just decided, like, season 1, that's 65 episodes, that's plenty. At one point we thought it was 46, don't ask. And, yeah, so whether or not we continue to even watch the rest of them, who knows? It very much depends on how we feel about this. But
I'd like to finish at least the original run of the animated series. Whether or not we'll do the new adventures, and even if we'll go really just keep on going and do like Batman Beyond or even Justice League, depends how this pans out, honestly, because we don't know how much effort this is going to require just to do this first season. I would at least like to finish in a maybe a supplement the second season of this particular show, but we'll just see how this pans out. This is very experimental.
And I would say overall, a very good show. An insanely, like, it's very ambitious, I feel. There are a lot of episodes that are experimental, but for the most part, it is, like, for a kid's show, like, stuff that they were just like, okay, we're just gonna have people just shooting guns at each other, and, like, we can get away with that, as long as we, do it very carefully. And it doesn't feel too compromised, like, this is aired on, like, Cartoon Network. Like, I watched this when I was little. Like, it's very well done. The quality is a little more varied than I remembered, and we'll get to that. But
I feel like these early years of the DCAU were probably the most interesting, because as we'll go through this, there's definitely a lot of them just finding their footing, and it kind of becomes a bit more steady and a bit more safe as we go even just through this first season. But here there's a lot of interesting things. So at one point I was like, oh, we should do like Justice League, and we might still do that, but I felt like this is a bit more interesting because Justice League is like more consistently good. Like, arguably, like, you can argue if it's like better or worse than Batman the Animated Series, but it was like more like they'd figured everything out. This one is kind of weird, especially with like animation, writing, what sort of plots they go with, character designs. Like, this is I feel like there's more interest in here with this being their early attempt at making I think it's like a lot of people coming off like Tiny Toon Adventures and stuff, like trying to make their like a serious show.
Right.
So that's partly why we did this. So I also want to say that, like, overall, our grading system, this is all like relative to the show itself. Like, I would generally say like a D in Batman the Animated Series on our scale is still better than most cartoons, probably. Like the actual. So I want to say, when we're grading these, this isn't like a C isn't like an average cartoon of the 90s. It's like, no, this is all relative. It's for this show, because there's any ambiguity there.
I do like, because you wrote Baby Mad on the tier list, that's foretelling that at the very least one of these episodes did not go over well. But,
yeah.
No, I would say, yeah, I think that is true, though. Like,
well, it's not necessarily. I mean, UFO 50, we didn't. It was Yoshi who came up with an F.
Right.
So,
well, I guess we have a lot to get through, so we might as well start, huh?
Uh-huh.
Alrighty, so we start here with the first episode in the production order, maybe, because this is not the first episode that aired, strangely, but it very much feels like a sort of pilot episode.
Mm-hmm.
It is On Leather Wings. It's an interesting one to start off with, because it is a sort of mystery plot where the villain is the Man-Bat. Where the main
I heard somewhere that they didn't want to lead with like the Joker or someone, because they'd immediately get like a heavy comparison with like the Jack Nicholson or even if they did like a Batman Returns character, or even like one from the '60s, they didn't really want to set themselves up for that comparison, so they went with Man-Bat
Which
for their very first
not
villain.
a bad decision. It's God. We've seen so many episodes now. I have to remember 65 episodes back.
Well, I did a little synopsis there at the very least.
Yeah. I just remember this one being kind of bland.
It was alright.
Yeah.
They can't do too crazy on the first one produced, so it's fairly safe. Probably the most interesting thing about it is that Batman is being mistaken for the Man-Bat. I mean, naturally.
Right.
So it's like tension with the cops. So that's the main thrust of that, and that's obviously why he's kind of like personal for him, I guess. It's interesting that leading with tensions with the police, like that seems like maybe something that would hold off for a bit, rather than him just being a vigilante,
right?
Rather than the dynamic that causes with actual authority. But
actually, yeah, that's interesting that they didn't start with an origin. Like in the very beginning, Batman is already Batman. And it's more so about building the world, like building his sort of reputation with the police. Because you've got, Bullock, who's a recurring character he hates Batman. But, and then you've got the trio of Man-Bat characters who I almost thought they were just going to be one-offs for this episode, but they actually make multiple appearances.
Mm-hmm.
Which was surprising, but yeah, the main plot is really just like there's there's this Man-Bat character, and it somehow traces back to these scientists, and you think, oh, it's the grouchy guy, he's the Man-Bat, and then it's actually the other guy. Nah.
Yeah, it is what it is. It's the opening. I've always been a big fan of the opening shot, which is the Man-Bat flying over a blimp, which is very good at setting what they call the Dark Deco universe they made. It was like Art Deco art style, but it's as if I think they said the World's Fair never ended. So it is the modern day, but with 1930s sensibilities. And the opening shot of this episode, just like, okay, the police are just operating in blimps, like that's just a thing. Right. So I always appreciated that. Yeah, you want to play it safe for your first episode. It's not bad at all.
No.
But I think I put it like nobody really cares that much about Man-Bat.
Man-Bat is nobody's favorite villain.
Yeah, that's what I wrote. I also want to acknowledge that opening shot is also referenced in... So, like, years and years later, they did Justice League Unlimited, and they thought they were producing their final episode. Turns out it wasn't, but at the time they thought this might be our final episode. They made an episode called Epilogue, and it focuses on the Batman Beyond timeline, and it ends with a shot of Terry McGinnis flying past one of their sort of futuristic airship things, and it's a reference to this. So, yeah, that's just a little nod that they would do to this first episode years later. Just want to acknowledge that as well.
Oh, right.
That's quite cute.
That's cute.
Mm.
But yeah, this one got a C from us. It's very middle of the road. I think everything about it that's neat doesn't really change the fact that it's just not a very interesting episode. Like, it's a lot of aesthetics.
Yeah.
Like, it nails down the aesthetics in the world, and that really is nice. But the Man-Bat plot is just really whatever.
Yeah, you got like a very obvious red herring. There's Odo from Deep Space Nine. They have there's a bit where he's actually chasing the Man-Bat, and it's like it just feels like a showpiece for that animation. Like they go around this construction yard, this skyscraper framework, and the camera pans around. It's all like cell animated. the actual structure, and they're just kind of flexing a bit and showing the budget. The soundtrack as well, like being fully orchestrated, being a fully orchestral soundtrack as well, by Shirley something, Shirley Walker. They should like just it's really just like showing off our production. Here are our production values. We are a serious cartoon, you know, like we are not just kid stuff.
Yeah, no, it's not a weak opening, but I almost feel like we should bump it up maybe because I don't know.
I'd be alright with that. I think it's alright. I think we also partly put it in C just because it was literally the first one we'd watched, and we would. I mean, not literally ever, but it was the first one we watched, and I think I just said, just put it in C, and then we'll work around that as a baseline. Because I don't know, it's like...
Yeah, I think we can bump that up. I think a B is fine for that one.
You just gotta put that there as well.
Yeah.
So we don't forget. But... Alright, I've done that.
Okay. Episode 2, Christmas with the Joker. Well, I remember when we first watched this, we were like, is this a Christmas episode? Because, like, they just bumped it up into the air date in order to, you know, match the season. And that's why it's like, it kind of stands out a little bit, because it's very clearly not one of the earliest episodes, or at least we thought so. But no, this aired like 24th or something. But so if we go by this being production order, this just is the second episode, and it's really odd because it feels like it shouldn't be.
No, it's very strange to do. Like, Joker's first appearance is a Christmas episode. It reminds me of The Simpsons, how it wasn't definitely not the first one produced, but the first broadcasted episode of The Simpsons was the Christmas special, which is always just a weird little, you know, for as long as that show's been around, just kind of a fun little tidbit that, you know, the first ever episode was a Christmas special.
Yeah.
That's almost the case here, but I suppose also referring to the order we watched it in, I suppose nowadays that is the order people would watch it in.
Right.
You know, like if you get it on DVD or Netflix or streaming, whatever, I presume this is now just going to be the order going forwards. But yeah, you're quite right, though. It's kind of strange.
So, it's kind of a fairly standard episode, all things considered. Like, the theming is interesting, where they reference, you know, It's a Wonderful Life, and just, you know, just the general Christmas vibe. Like, it's good, but the plot is really just Joker escapes, and then they have to find him.
He escapes in a particularly silly way as well. He has a rocket-powered Christmas tree.
He just flies out of Arkham, like, just out of nowhere.
Yeah, while singing.
Yeah. This is also notable in that this is the first appearance of Robin, who we will not see for like another 20 episodes or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, that's another reason why we thought that this was made later and then aired earlier, is because he shows up and it's unceremonious, and then he goes away after this. And as far as I can tell, that was always the intent, is that he is just sort of a guy in college, and whenever they need him, they just put him in an episode. Like, he doesn't do this full time, he's just sort of around when necessary. But it's really weird that, like, you just have no idea whether or not you're going to see him on any given episode.
I don't know what the term would be. It's a bit like, you know, like Chekhov's gun, but he's a person. Like, he's only around if he's going to have some sort of impact, or if it's necessary for him to be there.
I mean, even this one, I would say no. Honestly, I don't remember him doing...
No, I disagree with that, because it's Christmas, he needs someone to talk to.
Oh, yeah,
like,
fair.
he's the one, like, trying to get him to watch It's a Wonderful Life.
Okay, so yeah, he's important for the banter, but not so much the the actual like villain plot.
No. That's true. You're right in that regard. But yeah, I mean, he's never. I think I might be wrong. I might be reminded of something else as we're going through these. But from what I recall, he doesn't really. There's never an episode where he's just kind of there and he doesn't have anything to do. Like he always has something specific to do. I mean, I know that sounds obvious, but you know, he could very easily just tag in one of these other episodes, and you would just be fighting. I mean, like the 66 show, you know, he could be there. It doesn't necessarily mean he'll have anything important to do,
Right.
other than like an action scene. But in this, we find that if he's there, he's usually he's there for a reason.
They use him carefully, which is kind of surprising. I guess I just wouldn't have expected them to do that with that character, but it isn't like this is a Batman and Robin show. No, it's just Batman, and then, you know, Robin's there whenever he's needed.
No, I think they, I forget how they handle this, but they do rebrand the show as The Adventures of Batman and Robin, which is what that Sega game is named after.
Right.
And they do like a alternate opening sequence, which is way lamer than the famous one. I guess I just want to very quickly acknowledge that intro, which might be one of the best intros of any cartoon ever. And I also want to acknowledge that it's completely wordless. Like, there was no Batman title card. It's just, you just see Batman and you know who it is. That's it just reeks of confidence.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's such a good opening.
It's such a well-made show. It's like just through and through. With this, I want to point out the bulletin there. Joker's actual design only appears on like a robot like replica of him. There's like
it's like shooting at him.
Yeah, they get like at one point they enter a building and there's just a bunch of Joker robots with gun hands or something like that. But that is the only time you see that design. Like otherwise, he's in some sort of costume the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's the if you're going by this order, then that's the debut of the design, and like with the purple suit, and it's a robot, which is quite interesting.
It's also the debut of Gleason, which is kind of funny because at one point it's like, because he does this thing all the time where he's on TV and he's always talking on, like he just really wants to be on TV for some reason. And in this episode, like, he shows up on TV and he's like, oh, I've got these guys here, and it's like Gordon, Bullock, and Gleason, and we were just like, who is that? And it turns out Gleason is like this TV reporter character who is in like half the show. Like,
yeah, I didn't even acknowledge her. I didn't until we started listing the characters. I did not realize how integral Summer Gleason is to this whole show. Like, prior to doing this with you, if you ask me, like, oh, what's the name of the reporter character in Batman the Animated Series, like, they had one, like what, like April O'Neil or someone, like who? But then you actually, like, once you acknowledge it, she's like, oh no, she's like, yeah, she appears almost more than fucking. Well, she definitely appears more than Robin. I almost said that as a joke. It's like, no, she literally appears like twice as much as Robin does.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't actually get the completed count, but. No,
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's insane. I just thought that was funny. Like, she was one of the people that was kidnapped, and you were just like, who is that? It's like, oh, she's this important character, I guess, in that she appears a lot, but all she does is just tell you what's going on because she's a
I think just because she never got any, like, she never got, like, an episode. She's never been that integral. She's always around, but she's never that important to the plot. Like, she's never had a story around her, at least not yet. Not seen yet.
She had one minor thing in one episode, and it was kind of silly. And that was about it. Well, that and this one, where she got kidnapped. Otherwise, she's basically, she just is what she is. She's a reporter.
Yeah.
But overall, we seem to like this episode a lot more. So we put in B.
Well, it was like your first proper supervillain one, you know?
Yeah. And it was a lot of fun. Like, there was basically nothing...
It's
really
not like it's not a great like Joker episode. Like what he's doing is pretty standard for him, but I feel like the Christmas setting probably elevates it a bit.
It is episode 2. If we go by this logic, then
was the second we watched.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not the strongest opening for him, but it's not bad either.
Mm-hmm.
We apparently enjoyed it enough, and especially with all
So
the
we
theming,
put it in B.
Guess we put that above.
Yeah, it was a little more interesting than that.
Yeah.
Not the best Joker's thing, but it wasn't bad though at all either. It's and just the way they handled Christmas as well. It felt quite, for what it is for a kids' cartoon, it felt quite mature. Like Batman's kind of attitude towards watching It's a Wonderful Life and things like that. It just, it wasn't like saccharine. It wasn't like too sweet either. It wasn't cheesy. It just portrayed quite relatively realistically. Well, for this. So yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, the whole show felt surprisingly mature. Like, not so much so that you would be, like, shocked at what they do, but just that they were able to get away with, being... It's very respectful, I guess. It does not talk down to its audience ever. Which is really nice.
That's why we can watch it as an adult. Yeah, and, and it's still entertaining, honestly. There's no, like, irony or anything like that. It's like, no, it's good. For the most part.
For the most part. I mean, there are definitely weaknesses. I think we're about to get to one, if I remember correctly.
Yes, so next episode is Nothing to Fear.
Episode 3, Nothing to Fear. This is our introduction to Scarecrow, and he, oh no.
He looks terrible. I'm gonna request that when you edit this, we probably should have a picture of him up on screen, because oh boy, that's the design. Most characters in this pretty good. They all got redesigned for New Adventures of Batman. Most were a downgrade. Scarecrow was definitely an upgrade because oh boy, how can you do worse than this? Although he does get 2 designs in this show alone, but the second one is better, but it's not this bad. So, yeah, like, just physically, like, I don't even know how his neck fits in there, and I know it's a kid's cartoon, but oh boy, he's not intimidating in the slightest, even for a child. He is a silly Scarecrow man. Yeah. And that, honestly, that alone kind of ruins the whole episode.
Kind of. I mean, just in general, this character is done very weakly in this show. Like,
yeah,
he looks like Earthworm Jim. He just isn't intimidating. They don't do almost anything interesting with the, like, hallucination stuff. Like, his whole thing is just like, he makes people scared, and they just go, I'm scared. And doesn't look cool, he doesn't act cool, and... It's
a very childish take on producing fear. It feels, maybe not as extreme as this, but it feels like the 60s show, they didn't really... A lot of these are quite grounded, like a lot of the character designs for this show in particular, they reimagined a lot of characters, made them more interesting. Two-Face, Mr. Freeze. Scarecrow just still comes off as really stock. Like, there is really no kind of interesting backstory to him or justification what he's doing. We get his origin here. So unlike Joker in the previous episode, this guy is new. He is new to Gotham, and Batman doesn't recognize him. And we do get his origin, and he's just a guy. As in most depictions, he's a therapist who works at Arkham, and he's obsessed with fear. And in this plot, he gets expelled from Gotham University for his fear experiments. And the plot is just, in this episode, he just wants revenge on the professors that fired him, and that's literally it. There's nothing. This is no hard advice. This is just, you got kicked out of the university for being weird. And he's very much kind of a mustache twirling villain. He's just like, probably the most interesting part is that he's not stealing the money, he's burning their money, which is very reminiscent of Joker in The Dark Knight, which is a funny coincidence. But what kind of retrospectively makes that funnier, though, is that in the next time we see him, he is stealing money. We'll get into the actual plot. He's trying to gain money because he says his experiments are expensive. So like, oops, maybe you shouldn't have been burning that money. Maybe you should have been pocketing some of it. So whoops.
They just didn't know what to do with this guy, and it shows so heavily. Like, I don't remember anything about this episode other than that I just did not like it.
It's just his tone. It's not just his appearance. It's just the way he talks, the way he interacts with other characters. His voice. He just of all these characters, he just comes across as the most. They just reminds you, oh yeah, this is a kids' cartoon. Like this is for children. Just the way they handle them, and there's nothing. We don't really see, if I remember correctly, we don't see many of the hallucinations from like the point of view of the person experiencing. There's like a security guard who pictures spiders going across his arms, but they don't really do much of that until a much later episode with Scarecrow. And that point it's like a lot better, but here they just don't know what they're doing with this character. And this is the episode with the famous monologue. I am Batman. Like this is the famous line reading from Kevin Conroy. It's just kind of funny to see that in its original context because everything surrounding that scene is very stupid. He's just had a fight on a blimp.
He's like hanging off the front of it, and he's like clutching to it, and he's having hallucinations, and then about like his dad, I think. And then he's just on the front of a ship, suspended in the air, like kind of like clutching to it, like, oh, I don't want to fall. And then he's just like, I am the knight. I am. It's just like, it's that would have been very silly.
I always thought that was part of a Mad Hatter episode that much later on. I thought that was part of the Dream episode, but no, it's this one. I thought that's how that other one ended, but no, that's here, and it's not. The problem with that scene is it's a great line reading, but it's not really earned because it's just. So I should explain: the Batman gets a blast of fear gas when he first meets Scarecrow, and he doesn't like have a cure for it. I don't think he ever gets a cure for it. In Batman the Animated Series, you get fear gas, you just have to deal with it. You just have to man up and take it, I guess. But just deal with it. So he gets the fear gas. He just has to deal with it the whole episode. That's why he has the hallucination of his dad, and that's the big moment where he conquers his fear, and it's just like, no, my parents are not disappointed in me. I am Batman. It's a good moment, but it doesn't redeem the rest of the episode just being very stock.
Yeah, that's.
It's that design though. Like if he just looked better, there'd probably be if he had a different design, this whole thing would probably just at least be a C. But I can't take it seriously. He looks so stupid. It's just physically like the series kind of goes for a realistic kind of look, at least for a cartoon. But I don't even know how his neck fits in that. It's just such a weird design. And he takes his mask off, and this also ends the same way. Well, it's not how Batman Begins ends, but he gets a blast of his own fear gas.
Right.
So that's a little moment as well. And the depictions of like Batman under fear toxic, it's just not that interesting. And they're obviously not going to scare the shit out of young children, but they could put a little bit more edge on it. They seem like they were just I don't know if they're just being very safe, trying not to scare kids. But like, a lot of the designs are just kind of.
In a later episode, they actually do something with it, but it takes a while before they actually do. And
in these early years, are like,
yeah, no, this was weak. We put it in D. And
yeah,
I think it should stay there. It's pretty bad.
Yeah. Yep. Oh well.
Right.
Next one is the last laugh.
The last laugh. This one feels like it should have been like the main introduction to Joker. There is this tidbit where there is a YouTube video that you can find, which is this episode, but Tim Curry is the voice of Joker. Where it was that was, I guess, apparently who it was, like he was trying out for it or something. I mean, they made the
he was auditioning for it. Yeah, he was like their original choice, but there's very conflicting reasons why they didn't take him on. I think the rumor for years was that he was, quote, too scary, but then you hear the pilot and it's like, no, that definitely wasn't it. But but it just wasn't working for them. It's good. I think if you like, there's like a different time when we did take it on, and you'd be well liked, but they tried it with someone else. That person being Luke Skywalker. It was like, that's a terrible fit. Why would he be a good Joker? And then he absolutely killed it, and he's like the voice of the Joker, Mark Hamill, from now on.
Yeah.
But it's out there. It's quite curious if you want to hear it. I think it took a long time for it to be made public as well. So I heard about it for years, but it's only recently I saw it. So, but yeah, this is definitely feels like the Joker's introduction. This is the first time we're seeing him in his regular Joker garb, doing things that are not related to Christmas. And Batman already knows him, so he's a known scoundrel. He's already part of the Rogues Gallery. And he's no. Well, he kind of sort of half does. They kind of later on they use the name Jack Napier, so it's sort of alluding to this being kind of canon with the Tim Burton movie somewhat.
Sure.
Like I think there's episodes of New Adventures of Batman which suggest that he did have the whole chemical fall thing. But anyway, so he's like piloting a barge around Gotham, and it's got Joker gas on it, and it's I think I put on here the time that makes you hysterical rather than just flat out kills you, and he's just using the chaos to just rob a bunch of shit and just have a laugh. It's also set during April Fool's Day. There's a couple of gags with Alfred at the very start and at the very end. I drew you a bath.
I don't know. I love you wrote down laughing gas is funny.
Yes.
It certainly is.
I wrote these first few synopses before I realized how many damn episodes there were, and I kind of then started just copying and pasting them from online. But these first few are mine. But yeah, it's just a solid Joker episode, and it's like the first one, kind of like the first normal one. At least as normal as they get for Joker.
Right.
And probably like the most notable thing about it is Captain Clown. He has this robot.
He killed him.
Yeah, he killed Captain Clown. I'm a big fan of Captain Clown because he's quite creepy. There's just something about a robot with like a smiling clown face that kind of gets me. It's well animated as well. You know, it's quite a clunky robot. It isn't, particularly nimble. You sort of tell it's inhuman, but it has a human face. I'm just kind of a big fan of that dynamic. And he kills it with I think it's like a trash compactor or something, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
In a lot of episodes, which leads him to rant. You killed Captain Clown. And then the episode kind of ends because he's in a trash barge. He's at a landfill, and it's just solid throughout. I can't really say too much. I mean, it's not really exceptional in any way, but
no,
It's one of those things, though. I do think there were better Joker episodes, so I don't know. This might be something that might change a bit based on retrospect, because we're gonna get like the laughing fish and things like that. And I would just say straight like that is a better Joker episode than this one. I think it's also like this is our first proper Joker episode, so just kind of like
I can't help but have my opinion colored by that one video I saw that pointed out they said it was one of their worst episodes, and with their reasoning, I'm like, yeah, there's some weirdness in this. Like, some of the animation isn't great. There's just a bit where Joker just falls over just randomly, like that's how he gets captured. It's like,
oh yeah, I guess it's like he sort of steps over a rope and then it magically ties itself to his leg.
Yeah, it is. It's not a bad episode. I wouldn't honestly say it's one of the worst.
I think I would say in retrospect, though, I think it's probably a C, not a B.
It's a C. Yeah, it's a C. It's not a strong episode anyway. It is just fine.
Yeah, Yeah, it's when we first watched. I mean, it's not literally the first Joker episode we watched. I want to acknowledge that, but so it was still like a novelty to see Mark Hamill's Joker. So it's kind of riding off of that, but having seen a few more, yeah, it's I'm gonna knock it down a peg.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, next episode.
Pretty Poison, the Poison Ivy episode.
Hmm.
She does get something. Does she have an origin, or she's just Ivy, I think.
Well, I mean, this well, it's not origin as in she never really has like the persona of Poison Ivy. She just kind of does criminal stuff, and then she just kind of shows up as. I don't know when they actually. I should forget when they actually first used that term out loud, Poison Ivy. But this is her introduction anyway. This is the first time we see her as Pamela Isley.
This is also because the plot is that she's dating Harvey Dent and then poisoning him, and then she eventually gets found out by Batman, and then there's a fight scene in a greenhouse, and plant shenanigans are involved, and that is basically the whole episode. But
it's better than you've just made it sound.
It's very simple, but it's again we rated it B, and I remember it being fine, but yeah, it is straightforward. I do enjoy that Dent is kind of a character beyond just being Two-Face. Like, using him.
He very, very briefly appeared in Leather Wings.
You see his hand and him flipping a coin, and you're just like, oh, I know what that is.
Well, I think they name dropped him. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, probably.
It's been a long time since we once, but I don't think it was a speaking role, but he was definitely there. So even that early on, or in terms of production, they were already setting him up, which I absolutely love, by the way. Like, they didn't have to do that, but it adds so much more to Two-Face to see this established character change. Like, this is a pretty episodic show, but that's like the one bit of continuity. I suppose, there's very few times you see Harvey Dent as himself. They're the only ones that kind of date an episode. Like, oh, this is pre-Two-Face,
They actually reference the fact that they were dating at one point later on, which is pretty fun.
Yeah.
So, I don't honestly have a lot to say about it, but it was okay.
I don't know how to phrase this. It's a bit. My pro there is a bit weird. Her madness is portrayed well. That's a very strange thing to say. But what I mean is, like, she values the life of plants over people, and they portray that quite well. Like, she is sort of like well-spoken, articulate, but you can tell she's like under the surface. She's quite unhinged,
right,
and willing to kill. Like, she's sort of softly spoken, but then she'll talk about, she really does think she's justified in trying to kill Harvey Dent because there's like an early, the first scene is a flashback, and I think I can't even remember what it was. It's like a build. Oh no, it was a penitentiary, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was a penitentiary, and they bulldozed an area, and they almost killed an endangered plant there, and she had like the last surviving plant. And she, just the way she talks, she's well-meaning, but she also she doesn't value human life, and the way she speaks, she really does feel like, oh yeah, I'm justified in this. No, he's a real criminal. I know, he almost killed these plants, so he deserves to die. Just like the way she says it, incredibly matter of fact. I really like that part of that character, and for this show and some of these other characters, like, that's very subtle, but she just still belong in Arkham. So I like her portrayal here. Yeah,
it is interesting that I'm kind of basing this on later interpretations. I don't know exactly how this character has worked before this, but in this show she is just human. She has no powers at all. Like, she's not like a plant person. She is just a really passionate, extremely passionate, like, pro-forest,
like eco-terrorist.
Yeah. That's really it. Like, the fight with her, the plants are really kind of autonomous. They just do stuff for her.
She Yeah, she like cultivates them. I think she breeds the plants, but I don't think she doesn't have any magical powers over them.
Yeah.
I still don't know what the Latin term for plant power is, but
Phytology? Phyto? I think phyto is the word.
Sure, I'll go with that. But yeah, it's just a solid episode. I like the fight, and Batman wins by threatening to destroy that plant. That's the only reason why she loses, because she really doesn't value it that much.
Right.
So that was a nice touch as well. But yeah, that's a good episode, and it's a good introduction for her as well.
Yeah.
So I've noticed some characters get their own two-parters. She wasn't so lucky.
Right.
But she's just kind of around. She doesn't have like a tragic origin or something. She worked in a cosmetics factory or something, a designer, something like that.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, she just tries to poison a guy.
Yeah.
That's attempted murder.
We got 60 more episodes to go through. I'm gonna put that in B.
Okay. What? But it doesn't matter that much. We're gonna have too many of these.
Yeah, let's try at least. I'd say at the top.
Yeah, alright, fair enough. Yeah, it's a good intro for her.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is yeah, sorry.
Episode 6. The Underdwellers.
So this is our first kind of weird episode. This is the first one we saw. I don't know about you, but I felt like that's weird. Like that is not what I imagined for Batman the Animated Series. Or at least, I mean, I did watch this as a kid on and off, but like this is not what I remember of this show. And there's a few of these. Like this is the first one that kind of reeks off. We're not really sure what we're doing. We're just kind of figuring this out on the fly. This is an odd one.
This is one of many episodes, and I'm kind of assuming here, but I feel like kid me would have seen this episode, or may have seen this episode, and just not liked it, because whenever you watch Batman, if you're a kid, you're just like, I want to see the cool supervillains, and I want to see the just what's going on with them. But this one, no, they
you don't like the Sewer King?
The Sewer King, good old SK. So they came up with their own new villain, I guess, I assume. Yes. And they came up with a plot where there's child labor in the sewers?
Yeah.
I mean, down to the fact that this episode has a very anime-looking, like, graphic style to it. Like, it's very clearly drawn by, like, an Eastern dev, like animation studio. Like,
I want to acknowledge, we'll just quickly mention this now, that the way animation works is that, you'll get the American studio doing the keyframing, character designs, all that, voice recording obviously, but then generally they'll be shipped off to another country to be animated, typically in Asia, not always. I think they do it in like France, some other countries. But so one thing that came up with us watching this, and this is probably something we wouldn't have really noticed if we just watched episodes, an episode here, an episode there, but watching these back to back, we notice how different the animation can be, and we started to pick up on like, oh, did this one animate this one, or this one animate this one? So as we were watching these, we noticed that some of these just look very different, and the quality and animation changes quite a bit. We'll definitely get to that. And yeah, this one just very anime looking.
I remember it looking good.
If you can like very smooth animation.
Yeah, like whoever did these episodes, they actually were really talented, but it was odd, like looking at it being like, this looks more like Akira than it does an American cartoon. Like, that's weird.
The Sewer King's design as well, he kind of looks like a Japanese take on a Charles Dickens character. That's a very strange thing to say, but that's the only way I can rationalize it. Like a 70s anime adaptation of Oliver Twist, and that's Fagin. I know that's a lot of. I know I just strung a bunch of words together, but that's what it made me think of. This whole thing feels. So I put it in a little synopsis here that this kind of looks like this seems like something out of Victorian London and not Gotham City. I don't know, like just the child labor thing, the pickpockets, you know. Oh, why criminy? Why Jenkins? It's Batman, you know, like.
So, like,
it's just.
The plot is that there are these kids running around with like green cloaks, and for some reason that makes them leprechauns, apparently.
Yeah, everyone. Yeah, just to clarify that, because we're just gonna say things and not like just not dwell on them. Every character that sees these children, they're just normal-looking children that happen to be wearing like a faintly green like cloak with a hood. There's just this recurring thing. Was like, oh, was that a leprechaun just now? I think at least 3 characters.
Yeah.
Say that.
It was enough that we had to write it down.
Mm-hmm.
But so like they're just going around like robbing stuff, and then you see a shot of like these kids in the sewer, and they're like farming or whatever. Like they're just doing like labor, and they can't speak. One of them like injures themselves, and then makes like ah, and like everyone's just like shh, and then they can't talk, and then the sewer king comes up and he's like, all right, everyone gather around. I heard one of you speak. I'm going to throw you into a room with the big, like, sun lamp as torture. And because I guess they live underground, so they hate the sunlight. They're not used to it. But yeah, and then it's just, I forget how, but Batman gets a hold of one of them. Alfred has to take care of this kid, which has some like goofy, just like babysitter shenanigans with Alfred and this kid who doesn't know how to talk.
Baby mad.
Yeah. Not quite baby mad.
No.
But no, like, and then I don't know. He eventually discovers where they are. Batman goes down there and fights with this guy who, I don't know. He has pet alligators and a bunch of kids.
Yeah, they don't attack him. The alligators are loyal to him, apparently.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. It's mostly just weird plot set up, and then eventually Batman fights a guy.
I also I made a note of this. It's funny. It's I get why, because what he's doing is pretty horrific, especially if you sort of imagine it in real life. Because he's making slaves of children. That's pretty goddamn evil.
Yeah.
So like Batman's like thoroughly pissed off with this guy, and I kind of get why, and it makes sense. But he just has this like intense hatred of him that he never displayed for Joker or anyone else. It's just this one random one of villains. Like, he's real scum. I hate him so much.
You know, like, because Batman has the whole pacifist thing. Like, he doesn't want anyone to die. He'll actually go out and rescue people. Even, like, villains, if he thinks they're gonna, like, fall to their death or something. This guy gets dropped into the water, and he gets submerged, and some alligators, like, conform on him. And he's just like a good riddance, or he's like a fitting death to a disgusting man, or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Just like, well, glad that guy's dead.
Yeah, I know. Like, it's not that he doesn't deserve it, but I just found it funny that Batman's like doesn't really do that ever. But it's just this one guy. He's like, fuck that guy though. But you know, he's a piece of shit for what he's doing. It's just, I don't know. Just kind of drawing attention to that, I suppose. What else did I put? I was just like, we don't know who this guy is. There's at no point is there like a little illusion like, why? Who's this guy? Where does he come from? Why is he doing this? How is he doing this? It's like, no, just I don't know.
He has a society of children. He's enslaved, and he's just kind of a weirdo.
Yeah, like, I guess he's just getting them to pickpocket and do manual labor. But it's like, why is he doing this? Is he raising money for something? Or where did he come from? How did he control the alligators? It's like, no, don't worry about it. Like, what happened to his eye? You know, just don't worry about it.
That's just how he lives. That's just what he does.
Yeah.
So, we didn't like that one very much. It was pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
Confusing. Not very entertaining.
Put it in D.
I guess it was entertaining enough to not be baby mad, but it was just a weird episode.
I'm gonna put that behind Nothing to Fear. At least Nothing to Fear had had the Batman monologue in it.
I mean, it's Scarecrow.
It had a bit of Batman in even Scarecrow's better than this guy.
Even their Scarecrow is better than this fucking idiot. Just dumb.
It's just unusual, like the whole conceit of the episode, and there's also another episode coming that's like also very similar. So
yeah, 2 episodes from now, but we got one more in between that.
P.O.V.
Episode 7, P.O.V. This is a kind of a like multiple story, like multiple perspectives sort of thing, where you get flashbacks told by different people to tell. And it's like, oh, are they going to have conflicting ideas? And it's like, no, it's mostly consistent. It's mostly kind of a linear story, and the only inconsistency is just Bullock, because Bullock is full of shit. Which is funny because they actually show that he's lying. Like, the flashback doesn't show what he's saying, it shows what actually happened, but you hear him lying over it. So it's kind of funny, but
yeah, usually when you do these POV, these Rashomon like plots, like they usually conflict, or at least a little bit. But here, it's feels like it kind of misses the point of that. You've got 3 stories, and only one is one that's like unquestionably a liar, and then the other 2, like they don't, the other 2 are just Montoya and a rookie cop, and they're just telling the truth, and it's not terribly interesting. They don't even do that thing, but if you remember like Gotham Knight, where Batman did some crazy stuff and they perceived it strangely. It's pretty mundane. They don't really use the whole POV thing, despite being the namesake of the episode.
Yeah.
And like you said, like Bullock is lying, but that's not what they show, which is kind of fun. But that would only make sense if it's just like the one POV. That'd be alright for that, but having multiple perspectives, and they're also not of like the literal same event. They're like from different, like you said, it's like a linear. You could just paste one after the other, and it wouldn't make like a difference. There's nothing like, oh, Batman was here, but no, he was with me at the time. It's just a linear story. I feel like this plot gimmick could have been very interesting, but they didn't use it.
That's kind of the weird thing, is they frame it as if everyone's telling a different story, but everyone's just telling the same story, but at a different point, because that's what happened from their perspective. And the actual, like, because it was like they're sitting there being interrogated by Gordon and someone else.
Internal affairs.
Yeah, and it's just like, why did you go in? And so they were sitting there telling their story, but none of that explains any of it.
They kept saying Bullock was. No, yeah. Bullock kept saying they were late, and it doesn't really amount to much. Yeah, it doesn't change anything.
Yeah, because that's actually only the first half of the episode. The rest of it is just like Montoya saves Batman. Like, him and her kind of team up after she saves him, because he gets captured after a bunch of flaming pillars fall on him or something.
Right.
Like, that's what we wrote
But it's imperative that he gets the villain.
Yeah.
Who is... Like, they build up this... Like, the gang leaders. So it's like Batman, like... It's weird, because Batman sort of intentionally gets captured to see the mysterious gang leader, and Montoya saves him, but he could have saved himself, but then she does actually save him from getting attacked from behind.
Right.
So it's like she was still valuable, but he did have it under control originally. It's strange. And then we see this mysterious villain who you kind of hope would be a supervillain, but it's just they build this like random gangster up like he's going to be like the next Joker or something. Like just a lot of like a mysterious aura around this guy, and you're like, oh, who's this? And then it just turns out to just be some guy. Like it's just some jobber. It's just some random mook, and he's just this. I wrote down he kind of looks like off-brand Clock King.
He looked a lot like Clock King, but like you couldn't see him clearly, so it's like not very clear who it was. But then it turned out to be nobody. Maybe.
We haven't met him yet, so...
Yeah. Man, this was an episode that was kind of an ambitious in its premise, and then executed it terribly. Like,
Yeah.
It wasn't terrible, like, as an episode, but it was very clunky for what they purported that they were going to do with it. Like, it felt like there was a lot of... Like, they just didn't have a good idea with how to write such a premise, basically.
I'm just looking at our notes to make sure we haven't missed anything, and like you tell, this is just like a mixture between useful notes that we'll need and shit posting, because we've just kind of glossed over that apparently Batman dies.
That's what I wrote that
Batman
down.
dies. This is the episode where Batman dies. Don't worry about it.
That was definitely in reference to where he get hit by a bunch of fucking like flaming pillars, like he gets buried under them, and it's like, he is dead, right? Like, there's no way you survive that. And of course, he just gets captured afterwards. Like, all right, sure. But I'm very torn between explaining all these dumb shit post lines and just leaving them. Just
leaving them there. And then there'll be a point where we forget what they mean as well. It'll be even funnier.
At some point, we're gonna look at this and be like, why did we write down the SS Warnham City? Who knows? So.
Oh yeah, the door opening electro grapple as well. He fires like his traditional grapple hook, and it's like specifically to tear the doors off cars.
Yeah, it like electrifies it and it just blows open for some reason. Yeah. Very weird.
Yeah, not a very good episode.
No.
But not like particularly bad either. Just kind of disappointing, I'd say, is the word.
Yeah.
When you see that title and you see the framing, you're like, oh, this is going to be interesting. And it doesn't amount to anything. But there's nothing wrong with it particularly either. It's just disappointing.
I'd say bottom of C.
Sure.
Not bad enough to be D, but definitely not good.
No.
Okay, so there was this episode of Batman the Animated Series called The Underdwellers. I don't know if you remember that one. But,
I've forgotten. This is so many episodes. I can't remember that far back.
So,
I've forgotten.
Okay, so in this episode, what is it, like, homeless people go missing or something?
That's
like,
right.
Yeah, and so Bruce Wayne goes in disguise as a homeless person to go investigate, and he gets kidnapped, and he winds up in, like, fucking...
This is where it gets weird.
Yeah.
Like, where is he?
It's in, like, some canyon. Like, they're working mines in, like, a canyon or something, and it's not clear at all how far out of Gotham they are, if they're still in Gotham. Like, it just...
Are they in... I don't even know if they're in the same country. It's so vague.
Yeah, it's... Like, I just kept writing it just looks like Texas. Like, oh, he's in Texas now, I guess. But...
Yeah.
No, so he wakes up there, and it's very similar to the Underdwellers in that it's just like a bunch of people who are kidnapped and forced to do labor, basically, for some eccentric weirdo. Except this time it involves Bruce. Everyone else is adults too. Bruce actually has amnesia. Like, when he gets knocked out, he wakes up without memory for some reason. And so he spends a lot of the time just being like, I don't remember who I am or what's going on. And then he remembers he's Batman at some point, and then suddenly realizes, oh, hey, I can break out of this. And so he does. The villain is a big fat guy named Biggest who eats food.
Yeah, I wrote that like opening segment, and then that sentence suddenly appeared when I did a revision.
I just had to point that out.
Fair enough.
He's just a big fat dude named Biggest who is always eating because funny.
Yeah.
I had to point that out because that's so lazy for this show.
Yeah.
That is such a just nothing of a design.
I mean, he felt a bit more grounded than the Charles Dickens guy.
Grounded, sure, but just dumb.
Yeah. This is also, if I'm not mistaken, is never explained. It's like a chain gang that kidnaps homeless people. So, but that we don't get any explanation beyond that. I presume it's just that.
Yeah.
You know. Um, yeah, it's weird that we got two very similar plots this close together.
And, like, one that was not good, and either did it. That's the crazy thing, is, like, they did this twice, and it sucked both times. Like, this one is passable, but only just so. And
I think, yeah. I put one positive is that I like Batman being conscious of people going missing, because one problem with modern society is that people don't really give attention to like the homeless or anything like that. But I appreciate him being conscious of that, especially as a billionaire.
right,
So I like that. He's like savvy to that. What do you call him? Like the invisible or something? Well, I guess this episode calls them the Forgotten. So there you go. That answers it. But that's the one small thing I quite like.
Sure.
In fact, that comes up a few times. Like there's a few episodes that kind of highlight Batman's awareness of the underprivileged and the poor and things like that. It's not always just the big supervillains. So that's a small positive thing, but this is still kind of out there.
Yeah,
just kidnapping people for forced labor.
It also features Alfred, and like he flies the Batwing to go save Bruce, and there's like a bunch of comedy for that.
I didn't like that. I don't like Alfred being depicted like that, because Alfred in a lot of depictions is very competent. I don't know what his history is in this series in particular, but here he's just like an idiot, and he's like, oh, I'm playing the Black Blade, oh dear, oh, what's going on, I'm so scared, oh, I'm so incompetent. Whereas like a lot of Alfred appearances, he would have done that without hesitation or any... I don't know, I don't like Alfred being... I don't mind him being used for laughs, but not as an idiot, which is how he's depicted here. I didn't appreciate that. He does save the day, but in a sort of a clumsy kind of way.
No, it's...
Not a fan of that.
No, there's very little written down here that we like. There was, an interesting sort of, like, dream sequence. So that's where the references to the Joker are here. Cool lighting and mine scene. Yeah, there was definitely just... on the occasion, even in bad episodes, there would just be shots that are, like, really cool looking, like, really well animated, ambitious lighting, that kind of stuff.
I didn't write it down, but I quite liked a couple of the supporting characters, the guys who were, like, homeless, and...
Oh, yeah.
They were chatting to Bruce and saying, oh, don't worry. And at the very end, Bruce gives them a job. I very much like that ending. So they were good supporting characters. I forgot to write... I should have written that down. I like those characters.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's some of the stuff that makes it actually like a C tier. That's
what made it better than that Seward King episode.
Yeah, in spite of its weaknesses, there are still elements still well made. It's just what a strange episode, what a strange premise, and what a strange thing that they did it twice. Just
I put that in the middle.
Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna be a Joker episode, but it's probably a bit more interesting than P.O.V.
It's at the very least is an idea they had that they executed correctly. It just wasn't an amazing plot.
Fine.
Yeah.
Right. So you need to be a clown.
Okay. So. Okay. So yeah, I'm gonna mention this outright. We became familiar with the animation studio known as ACOM because they animated the worst-looking episodes of this show by far.
Yeah.
This is the first one we've seen, I think. And oh my god.
Yeah, so like I'm not that savvy. Like I'm a fan of cartoons, but I'm not like that savvy with animation. Like, I'm not really one to notice if something is like slightly off model or out of perspective, things like that. Like I'll notice, but I'm not an expert. It's kind of, it has to be like particularly bad for me for me to notice if animation is not very good. This is one of those cases. The animation in this is absolutely terrible, and we both were just like, "Oh, this is." Like the animation up to this point is always been a little up and down, but this is one where it was so bad. It was like it was distracting us from the episode. Like, it's shockingly bad.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I kind of looked into it, and yeah, ACOM, Bruce Timm hated ACOM, and he couldn't wait to get them off the show. So yeah, and I think someone else said you'd write an episode, and then you hope you wouldn't get like the kiss of death or something by finding out it was going to be animated by ACOM, which is a shining endorsement. It was something like that. It's like, yeah, if your episode's going to be animated by them, like, I'm so sorry.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So yeah, badly animated episode. But what's the actual episode like? Well, it's another Joker one, and the premise is that I think so. Mayor Hamilton Hill is on the news. He's like doing some opening or something. He gets attacked, and he says, something along the lines of, I strive to hopefully get Gotham as safe as my own personal mansion, with my own personal home, and he also like talks shit about the Joker, like I forget it was by name, like Costume Freaks or something like that. And Joker's watching it on TV, and he gets pissed off, and so he kind of wants to test the whole "as safe as my own mansion" thing by attacking him in his mansion. So he goes to his Hamilton's son's birthday party, disguised as a clown. Well, not disguised as a different clown, and he plants as a professional clown. And basically, he gets foiled. He has like an exploding birthday cake. Bruce Wayne foils it, not Batman, but Wayne happens to be there. And Joker uses a Joker-themed candle. That's probably his biggest mistake.
Right.
And then the sort of, I don't want to say B plot because it's kind of the main focus, but Hamilton's son, Jordan. Yeah, Hamilton's son, he has a strained relationship with his father. He really likes Jekyll, so he follows the Joker to his hideout. He's like, I want to be a clown. Hence the episode title. And then Batman tracks him at the same time, so you've got this kid that's getting mixed up in an otherwise pretty normal Joker plot. But I put down one of our positives that this kid being there with his poor relationship with his father, it adds a little bit more to the plot. There's a little bit more going on than would have been otherwise. And that's kind of it for the sweeping plot. Culminates on a roller coaster, which is
yeah. The Joker plots are always really fun because he just takes stuff personally. Like, he has some very... It's like kind of a theme with his plot lines. Is just him like being indignant about something, or just just really wanting to be on TV.
That comes up in Joker's Wild as well, where someone actually provokes him using that aspect of him.
But and it's just fun. You've kind of covered it there, though. It's a fairly centered episode with a little bit of nice flavor and the whole like Hill and his son dynamic. It's ugly as sin, and
I wrote down that everyone at the mayor's party is horribly ugly.
Yes, but I want to point out the thing is he says real Jekyll played by Jim Cummings. I honestly thought whenever you said that I was thinking he was played by Tim Curry. I thought that would have been the funniest gag. Like, because you know, there was that episode where he was the Joker at some point. So to have him play real Jekyll, I thought that would have been just real clever.
I think they're mid-production, they weren't going to be doing like self... Tim Curry did appear in Batman Beyond, though, so he did get a Batman role eventually.
Right. But, yeah, I think that pretty much covers it.
It's an alright Joker episode, but good god, the animation.
Yeah.
And it drags it down for us, and then it's really bad.
Yeah, I would say that the animation quality did affect our rating like a fair bit, because like that does matter, you know?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I didn't realize how much it mattered before we started doing this.
Yeah, same. Like, I did not expect there to be episodes that were determined by whether or not they looked good or not. Because, like, a really good-looking animation really brought up certain episodes for us, and bad ones brought down certain episodes, including, well, we'll get to it. But, yeah, I was expecting it to be more consistent across the episodes. Like, I was not ready for it to be so different on a per-episode basis. Like, you go from one that looks really nice, like the Underdwellers looked really nice, and then a few episodes later you get which is one of the worst-looking episodes in the entire series. And
It's one of those things that if I'd watched this in a bubble, like if I just randomly put this episode on, I probably wouldn't have given it that much thought, but watching them back to back, I realized how much of a step down it was.
yeah, I think that's...
I think I'd notice bad animation regardless, but, it's just, yeah.
Yeah, you might be able to be like, oh, okay, well, it's the 90s. There's stuff like that happens sometimes, but when you watch them back-to-back, you really notice the bad ones.
Mm-hmm.
But you also notice, like, whenever they do really nice ones, too.
Oh, that'll come up as well, thankfully, yeah. So we put that in C, because it's a good Joker plot, but the animation drags it down. It probably would have been a B otherwise.
Below the last laugh, maybe?
Yeah, it's a bit more interesting than the last laugh, but man, it looks rough.
Yeah, it does. Boy, does it.
Okay.
Two-Face.
So we've got our first two-parters, so...
Does your tier list have the two-parters separated?
No, I might have to fix that.
Yeah, that does matter here. I don't know if we actually rated any of the two-parters the same.
No, I don't think we did.
Because it was actually surprising how much they varied.
Mm-hmm.
You'll do something like in between edits or something. For now, Two-Face.
We'll just play pretend and we'll superimpose another video on.
Two-Face, Part 1. This is, well, it's his origin. What happened to Harvey Dent to make him Two-Face? It is a plot line about Dent having...
So you're literally asking me there. So what made him... I don't know, I didn't revise for this test, I'm sorry.
I mean, did you...
Have you done your Batman homework?
Your bad homework. So, what is it? Like, Dent is trying to run for election. Yeah, get reelected, that's it. And he's having a lot of psychological issues, like he's having bouts of rage, and just like he's just going off on people in public, and it's really becoming a problem. So he goes to a psychiatrist, and they actually handle this very well.
This was an innovation of this animated show.
Right.
Like, I'm pretty sure that them giving him mental health problems prior to him becoming Two-Face, like that was their idea, and it definitely makes the transformation seem a lot more believable.
Yeah, so like his persona as Two-Face is basically like half of his persona beforehand. Like he has these moments where he gets set off, and then he just starts becoming just like a villain, essentially. He speaks with a much deeper voice, and just starts acting very antagonistically. And
I think they say. So I think she said it's like suppressed rage because he doesn't like to show anger, so he sort of pressures it down inside of him, and then it comes out in an uncontrollable like alternate personality.
Yeah, it's again, it's written really well. It's written very maturely for a kids show. Like it works. And then there's Thorn. We haven't talked about Thorn yet, or this is the first time he's shown up. He's sort of the like de facto like mafia guy. Like just any sort of like underground dealings and stuff, like they kind of go through him usually. And so he finds out that about these like sessions with the psychiatrist, and decides to blackmail Dent, and that doesn't go too well for him. Basically.
No.
Like they what is it like? Yeah, they have a fight in one of them chemical factories that turns people into supervillains that Batman's
Yeah.
series loves so much, and an explosion catches him and scars half of his body basically, and that creates the Harvey No Two-Face that we all know and love.
Yeah. I also like that he tries to blackmail him, and he just brings out Big Bad Harv, who then just starts fighting him. That's a really nice moment.
Yeah,
you're speaking to the wrong Harvey. And then obviously Batman's relationship with Harvey Dent. He's Bruce's friend, so he's there to try and support him, and that's where the Harvey No comes from. And yeah, he gets at the very end of the episode, his face is disfigured. Well, I was going to say what happened to him, but no, that's literally the end of the episode. You just see him in hospital, and his girlfriend is Beyonce. I forget if they're engaged, but I think they were. Yeah. She faints, and that's how the episode ends.
It's very
it's a good episode.
Yeah, I probably didn't do it justice, but like it is a very good episode. It's well shot, if I remember correctly.
There's a bit in when he's getting therapy, and there's a lightning flash, and you see the Two-Face.
Yes. It's written.
It's not like subtle, but it is for kids. It's subtle.
Right? Yeah. It's one of those things where like it's not an impressive like as just an adult, but like for what they were doing, it is very ambitious with just trying to write it maturely, but still keep it within like a way that kids understand it.
Yeah, that'd be really hard to do. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, no, it's. I feel like they executed it kind of perfectly here, and the only thing that is interesting, like Dent's design is kind of wild, just because they give him a huge chin. I think
Yeah.
they want to emphasize the Two-Face aspect of Two-Face, so he's a big face.
What I theorized was it's because obviously he has a lot going on his face, like sort of the turned lips and things like that, and so I think they just need a lot of real estate to kind of draw that on. So when he's just his human self, he just has a huge chin.
Yeah. But no, it is solid through and through. This is definitely the first episode that we really enjoyed in our watch, and I put it an A.
Yep.
We put an A.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
I
also put a little positive. Thorn is a great character as well.
Oh, yeah. He's a fun design.
Yeah, he's just well performed as well. Like his voice is just kind of fitting the 1930s era without being too forced.
The voice acting, like, through and through is just solid. I don't remember any...
Yeah, like the only issues I've had, maybe Scarecrow sounds a bit too like theatrical, and probably some of the one-off characters who I can't even remember.
Right.
But the major characters other than Scarecrow, I would say, will cast incredibly well.
For sure, yeah.
Especially like and Two-Face here does the two voices. Like that's not everyone can do that, at least not that well.
Oh yeah, it's very distinct, the two. Like you can, it's kind of a running theme really, because you have that with Batman as well.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't mention it in the video, but one of our notes is that you hear, you see Batman doing the Bruce Wayne voice as he's like taking a call, and that's like, it's weird how
that was in the first episode.
Yeah, it's weird how disorienting that is, despite the fact that we know it's the same person doing like the same character, like played by the same person, but the two different voices are so distinct, and it works. It's kind of wild. And Two-Face is the same way. Like the big bad horror voice is it's so growly and low, but it works.
Yeah, I can't even imitate it.
It's not quite Noob Saibot, but it's almost there.
Well, it feels a bit more natural than,
For sure.
that
For sure.
Frank Welker voice.
It's,
Right, so that was part 1, and then moving on to part 2.
uh,
So this is kind of a sign why we didn't want to just necessarily put all the two-parters together, because I definitely feel like we both felt like part 2 of Two-Face is kind of a step down. It's not bad, but so I think the problem with this is just right from the opening shot is that he is already Two-Face. So the last we saw of Two-Face, he was, or Dent, I should say. He's in the hospital. He just realized his face is disfigured. That's it. Cut to the next episode. It's a few months later, I believe, and he's just full on like robbing banks and shit. Now it isn't without precedent because he is hitting Thorne's place and he wants revenge on Thorne. So it isn't them just being a villain for villain's sake. Like, it is justified, but just kind of even for this show, it's a little jarring to just suddenly see him with the split suit, and he has like twin henchmen who, to be fair, they do say that they were criminals that Dent prosecuted as DA. So these, they didn't say. Most henchmen in this series just kind of come out of nowhere. I guess you just go to the job center or something and get one. But in this case, this is one of the few cases where he actually said where he found them. But yeah, just because of the first part was such a slow build up to him becoming Two-Face, and it was done so well, it's just quite jarring to suddenly just instantly see him doing this. But and I feel like the rest of the episode just isn't as nuanced as the first one. It's still good, but it was definitely not as good.
yeah, I don't have much to add to that. It was very much just a conclusion to the setup, basically. Like, they didn't do anything. Like, there was a lot of unique, ambitious stuff with the first part. The second part is just, well, we gotta wrap that up. So, he's getting revenge on Thorne.
Batman's having a bit of a crisis because he's seen this happen to his friend.
Oh, yeah, there was that. And then there's his fiancée having to deal with that as well.
Yeah, she gets tricked into. She thinks she's. Thorne sends this. What's her name? Candice, posing as a cop. And then so she basically kind of accidentally rats on Dent at one point, and then they have their fight at the end. I will say one positive is that I do like it's like a three-way thing, because you've got two villains basically who hate each other and Batman. So I quite like that. Oh yeah, I want to acknowledge as well these. So one thing about Two-Face is that you can be portrayed very well as quite a serious character, but one thing from the comics that the show uses a little bit is his two gimmick. Like, you'll do things in twos. I mean, to be fair, like, all things aren't above this. Like the Dark Knight Returns wanted $2 million cast from the two towers of Gotham and whatever. But here his plan. He starts hitting on Thorne's fronts that have some sort of two pun, and it's just like, how many of those are there? Because he probably gives up pretty quickly, and I don't know if it's just like, he probably couldn't have found too many of those. Because Batman's on the computer, he's like, oh, they all have like two puns. I can't remember what they're called, but it's like, I can't believe there's too many of those. You're kind of limiting yourself there, Dent. That was kind of silly.
I didn't add anything. It was just like, oh, it's Two-Face, so he does twos. Okay.
Yeah, you see, he's a really good, like, kind of, you can make him a very serious character, but then when you've got to use his comic book gimmick, it just makes it seem very silly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I never liked the two thing. Well, it's better than another supervillain we'll get to.
That's honestly, that's all I've got. Like, it's just, that's it. But that's the conclusion for that episode. So.
Yeah, so we put that a tier down.
Yeah. I would say between, like, right after On Leather Wings.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not bad. Still pretty good, but Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Alright, so next one.
Oh,
It's
boy.
never too late. Another. I say another. Like this might be. Was this like the first kind of serious episode?
Yeah, for sure.
Like it's trying to like I don't know. Feels like it's trying to. Well, is Emmy bait such a thing? I don't know, but it feels like it's kind of hitting above its belt a bit. It feels like I appreciate the ambition. I'm trying to take like a serious story, especially one that would appeal to adults. I feel like it might go a bit too far. It ends up being a little stale. But anyway, what's this episode about?
That's a good question.
So yeah, so it's quite a serious story. It focuses on Thorne and Arnold Stromwell, who is like a rival crime boss, and his son has gone missing. So he's obviously very quick to assume it's Thorne's responsible because I think they're like the heights of their tension or something.
No.
So they decide to meet up, although really Stromwell just wants to interrogate Thorne, and Thorne uses it. It's in a Italian restaurant. Uses it as an assassination attempt, and he blows up the restaurant. And Batman saves Stromwell for information, if I remember correctly. He kind of wants him to confess a bunch of stuff to the police, which seems a bit far-fetched. And then he basically takes him to a recovery center for addicts, and then he reveals that his son is there because of the drugs he's been peddling on the streets. So it's like, who taught you this? Like, you did. I learned it from you. And then there's just kind of a conflict at the end, and I think eventually Stromwell says he'll give the information to police. Oh yeah, and his brother as well, who's a priest. And this whole thing is kind of, so this is set in the present day. We also get some flashbacks to Stromwell as a kid, and how they were playing on train tracks, and if I remember correctly, his younger brother lost a leg saving him from a train.
Yeah.
Which is a thing that happened. Yeah, it's like I said before, it's not bad, and it's quite admirable, but it's a little dry.
It's
like for
dry.
Batman, it's I can't say there's anything particularly wrong with it, but man, if you want some Batman action, it's just it's got some like action scenes in it, like the bombing and things like that. It feels like this is one case where I feel like they're trying a bit too hard to make it appeal to adults and not enough for kids. I feel like you'd lose a lot of kids in this episode.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know.
I don't remember Batman being very important to this episode at all. It's like he saves Stromwell, he helps him find the kid, but like I feel like with a little bit of rewriting, you could write Batman out of this episode, and that's not a good thing.
No, it's not. That feels like a script for quite a serious adult live action film. It doesn't feel like an episode of a Batman cartoon.
Yeah.
That's not really a good thing. It's one of those episodes where I can't justifiably say it's bad, but I'd never want to watch it again.
Same, yeah.
It feels like it kind of reminds me of something like Once Upon a Time in America or something like that. It just feels like an old-timey kind of I'm not calling Once Upon a Time in America old-timey, but it just feels like sort of an old-timey kind of crime mob boss story. It feels like an old film noir thing or something. I don't know, but not in there. And I like it. I like it sometimes when they try that, but not in this case. It's just kind of dull. I don't know.
I got nothing. It is just the least interesting thing you can do with Batman, and not that it's bad, it's just this show is not that. This is not what anybody watched this show for,
It feels like someone had like a script for a movie, and then they got this Batman gig, and they kind of shoehorned it into this episode.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it was written with Batman in mind.
No, and I appreciate them trying to do different stuff, but early on there was a lot of these just really out there ideas instead of just doing just straightforward like comic book stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like this being relatively early into this season is wild.
This is what I meant when I said I'm kind of glad we did this show in particular, because this is them figuring stuff out. Like, there's no way in hell you would have gotten something like this in Justice League or even something like New Adventures of Batman. You know, like by that point they wouldn't be doing weird stuff like this. And I like that this exists, but they stopped doing things like this for a good reason.
I would say,
but this is why I wanted to discuss this show, because this is their experimental phase, and you get weird stuff like this.
I would say like halfway through the season, they started to really find their groove and kind of stick with what they know. But leading up to that, you get stuff like this, which is just really out there. And it's interesting and yet pretty boring at the same time.
If it wasn't Batman, I'd probably be a lot more forgiving.
Yeah. I would also care about it even less. It's just not a Batman cartoon. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's not.
So we put it in C though, because ultimately, as much as we complained about it, it's not a terrible story, but where's Batman? I feel kind of childish for almost saying that. It's like, where's Batman? I want Batman.
I feel like
I would put this at the very end of C, because it does verge on being too boring.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I remember it also, like, whenever we saw the twist with the sun, it was like, oh, that's interesting, but leading up to that, I remember it was dragging. Like, just, I don't really care this is happening. And then finally they had a little bit of intrigue to it, but it felt like it was too late at that point. I mean, It's never too late, apparently, but it is too late.
Yeah, so I would ultimately say, like, it's a little dull, but it's not a bad episode. So what's next? Oh, I've got Batman in my basement.
I've got Batman in my basement is an episode of the Batman the Animated Series. This is the point where I gave up trying to write synopses, because I went to write this one and I was just like, oh god, what do I even say? So, Batman in my basement is an episode featuring the debut of the Penguin. His gimmick is birds, and he shoots a gas pellet at Batman, and Batman goes, and passes out. And then some kids witness this, and they rescue Batman, and then they defeat the Penguin with, like, Home Alone shenanigans. And if that sounds like one of the worst episodes of Batman the Animated Series, congratulations, you figured it out. It absolutely is. You're a detective on the level of Bruce Wayne himself. It is a fucking.
No, you mean episode. You mean that kid in the episode?
Oh yes, fucking Harry Grimoire.
He wants to be a detective. Apparently this was I forget where I heard this, so apologies if it's not true. But like, I think they were deliberately aping Home Alone. Like they were told or like encouraged by someone to make like a Home Alone kind of plot. This is what you get. There's a lot of reasons why this episode sucks. Well, for one thing, it's mostly from the point of view of these kids, and you know, nobody wants to watch the kid characters. Like, I think this is like this misconception that kids want to watch other kids. That's bullshit. I knew when I watch cartoons, I want to watch like Batman or Spider-Man or the Power Rangers. Like, I don't want to watch some kids, you know, be the protagonist just because I was a kid. So this speaks to that, and these kids are pretty annoying. Harry Grimoire. The other thing is the most damning thing about this episode, and this is so bad it actually has ramifications for the entire rest of the season and the show's history, because it's the debut of the Penguin, and oh god, like what an episode to debut on! Like, holy shit!
God,
he is. This set a tone for this version of the penguin. So this penguin is against the will of Bruce Timm and the production crew. I think Warner Brothers said we don't want to create confusion. You're gonna have to model him on the Tim Burton Batman Returns design, the Danny DeVito with so he's got like the flipper hands. He doesn't really. Thankfully, he doesn't act like Danny DeVito's penguin, but he does look like him. He doesn't go around biting people's noses in Batman the Animated Series. But so he's kind of like the refined gentleman character, but he still has the flipper hands.
Yeah, I actually like the way he's written in a sense. Like,
it's not that.
Yeah, it's just what they have him do. Like, and this is not the end of it for him. He gets some pretty bad episodes, but they established him on an episode where he genuinely just gets outsmarted by kids. Like,
yeah, I just want to quickly back up what you said. Like, the characterization of Penguin is fine. It's kind of what he does in this, and then the entire rest of the series. And Paul Williams' performance is great as well. Like, he's pitch perfect as a sort of refined criminal who thinks he's better than everyone else. But the problem with Penguin is, and it's starting with this episode, is just generally how he's used. But yeah, sorry, you were saying.
I just, from beginning to end, just a stupid idea, just an awful premise, and not even executed well. Like,
no.
We'd made a note, the animation in this one also sucked. I don't know if it was ACOM or not, but it also didn't look very good.
It's literally, Penguin is thwarted by literal children, and then while we're watching every other Penguin appearance we saw, we were just constantly reminded that, like, every time he did something, it was like, well, he was beaten by children.
Right.
And there's a lot of weird humor as well. Like, there's these two kind of bully characters, sort of. And they've got, like, some, like, they're sort of hostile towards the kid, and then they come round at the end, and they start working for a stupid detective agency. And then also at the end, like, this kid tries to hook Batman up with his well, hopefully single mother.
Yes.
That's a weird joke. I put the one positive on this is that it is at least amusing in spots. Like, it is so bad. There are parts it's just kind of, it's so ridiculous. Like, it needs to be seen to believe. Like, I would still kind of recommend this in a sort of ironic way. Like, if you, like, this is terrible, you need to see it.
Yeah.
There's another episode that's coming up that is just, I can't even say that word, that is just flat out bad. But the one positive is that it's in parts of it, I don't want to say so bad it's good, because it's not good, but in a twisted way, it's kind of worth seeing. It'll make you feel like, make you appreciate the other episodes more. But oh god, it shouldn't have even attempted this. This is the idea of kids defending Batman. But that also makes Batman seem weak.
Yeah.
And there's this bit with that Batman's sort of half conscious. And he's like, capsules, visor, and like, what does that mean? And then I think they just come across it by chance. They don't even figure it out. Like, some other kid opens the sun visor and the capsules fall out. I'm like, oh, that's what it means. Like, they didn't figure it out. They just stumbled across that.
He's such a great detective.
Yeah, oh god. Yeah, when's he coming back?
Oh my god.
Oh god, those characters are. I mean, so I'm pretty sure the production crew like knew how bad this was, and they're all pretty ashamed of it, from what I've heard.
I mean, how could you
nobody likes this episode. No, nobody likes this episode. It's been kind of disowned, so.
It is kind of expectedly, it is going into Baby Mad. It is god awful.
It is shocking, yeah.
It is, like, it is amazing that this even got made. Like, why?
Yeah. It's like the Batman and Robin of this show.
And they up with
what fucking whiplash! Holy shit!
They followed up that with an episode that won an Emmy.
Oh my god! I can't help this. This almost feels like it's intentional. There's a reason behind that. Like, that doesn't feel like a coincidence. I don't know. I don't know if it's like the production thing, like they used up, like, just get this shitty episode. You're going on the B team, whip up this shitty episode, we're going to focus on Heart of Ice. Yeah, like you said, this is the episode. This is the one that's talked about in the highest regards, this is the one that won an Emmy.
Yeah,
So,
and it is the introduction of Mr. Freeze into this series.
who got completely his origin got completely reworked specifically for this. Famously so. I mentioned this whenever we talked about Mr. Freeze in the movie video.
Yeah,
But they came up with it before he was just a cookie cutter, this kind of silly villain, and then they gave him like a tragic origin, and they did a damn good job.
yeah. I wouldn't say there's a lot here that I can say that we haven't already said about that character. Like, it's mostly just an establishment of what his deal is.
Kind of feel, this kind of feels like a little redundant even talking about this. This is probably the most discussed episode of the show.
What little I do have to say about it is I'm actually kind of surprised that it was not like in our. Well, actually, I don't know how many S ranks we have, but this did not get an S rank from us, and
no,
it was good. It was very, very good, but it was definitely not one of our favorites, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the way the way that Mr. Freeze is defeated is with chicken soup.
Yeah, that doesn't really come up a lot. I feel just for consistency's sake, just to very quickly run down the plot, but I know we all probably know this. It's Mr. Freeze basically is a scientist. He's trying to keep his wife alive through she's frozen. That's basically a life support system until you can find a cure for her disease. Ferris Boyle, who works for Gothco. Is it Wayne Tech or Gothcorp? No, it's not Wayne Tech, because then it'd be Gothcorp. Basically, he's like, you stop using my electricity. You stop using our resources to keep your wife alive. And it's kind of funny because he's voiced by Mark Hamill, which is pretty telling. And he basically causes an accident. It looks like he killed his wife, but we'll find out that wasn't the case. But and he basically, Victor Freeze, is forced to. He can't survive outside of a sub-zero environment. So that's his whole shtick, and that's why he wears the big suit, very very retro-looking design he has in this. No, he doesn't pile up diamonds. No, he doesn't do that. No. That's not a thing in this show, thankfully.
He's actually intimidating in this design.
No, he's actually good here. His shtick is that he's lost the love of his life, and he is just cold to the world. He's just devoid of emotion, and he wants revenge. And so it's kind of like the Scarecrow, but like about 1,000 times better executed.
Yeah.
I suppose that's another thing that kind of knocked this down a little bit. It is just a revenge plot, ultimately. In that regard, there isn't that much nuance. All the nuance that people praise this episode for, it's all on Victor Freeze. And then Batman catches a cold, and then he defeats him with soup. It's really, really good. The visuals, the Mr. Freeze's motif. Every character in the show, at least every major character, has their own musical motif. Mr. Freeze has a particularly good one. The shots of him holding the snow globe with his wife, and just the way the snow is animated. It's all really, really good, but I really don't like that ending. It's a joke. It's a gag.
Yeah.
It's a really serious episode. It ends with a gag. It's not just that. I don't know. Like, the pacing's a bit weird. Like, he saves a henchman, and I don't know. It just wasn't an S rank for me. Maybe because I already knew about its reputation. I kind of I went in with pretty high expectations that it didn't live up to. So I mean, I've seen it before, but it's been a while.
I think it's just the fact that it is really just kind of a basic revenge plot whenever you get past, like, the way, like, Freeze is written, like, his portrayal is really, really good, but whenever you get past that, it's just, he wants to get revenge. I'm gonna make a really embarrassing admission. I just noticed that Freeze's antagonist, or the character that he is rivals with, is named Boyle.
Yeah?
You know, Freeze and Boyle, that's...
Oh, Christ, I didn't realise that. Sorry.
That's comic books. Wow.
Yeah, okay. No, well, you realised that before me, so you still beat me. You were only second last in that race. I didn't even know the race had started.
Nice. Yeah, that's
yeah. It's two things. It is just a revenge plot. I mean, what they did with his character is incredible, very commendable. His characterization is great. It's sort of his cold dialogue is it's a good conflict with a lot of these eccentric other characters as well. You know, like Joker and even like Riddler and people like that. But he's just indifferent to everything.
I would say,
yeah, and that chicken soup thing really just—it's not even that bad, but it's just because of the rest of the episode being so serious.
It stands out in contrast.
I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, like the contrast there is very odd for how serious the rest of the episode is, to have it end on a gag like that. It very strange. I think, like, for us are episodes that impressed us, and this one didn't impress us, mostly because what would have been impressive we already knew about, I think.
Yeah.
And
that's another thing as well. We kind of take this for granted as well.
Sure, yeah.
You know?
But I don't think we should just bump it up just because, well, we should like it more than we do. Like, no, it's...
No, I'm not doing that. It's still not my favorite episode.
Yeah. But it was good. It was a very good episode. There's a lot of good stuff here. So, it goes an A.
It does, yeah.
Would it go above or below the theoretical Two-Face Part 1?
I would say above.
Sure. Okay.
Hang on. Let me slow down a bit. No, I really like that. I really like that Two-Face one.
No, that Two-Face one is really good. I would say Two-Face is higher.
Alright.
Because I think just because of the soup.
Goes.
The soup brings it down just a smidge, but still a good episode.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
So would you like to see the first aired episode of Batman the Animated Series? Because here it is.
Oh, right, okay.
This is The Cat in the Claw Part 1, and then if you wanted to see The Cat in the Claw Part 2, you'd have to wait for about 5 more episodes for some reason. One of the most baffling things about learning about the different ordering is that seeing this is Season 1, Episode 1 in the air dates, and then seeing Part 2 with Season 1, Episode 7 or 6. It's... why? Like, what in the world?
But these are the same source, right? Like, you know, it didn't mean like a different network or something, because that's bizarre.
I don't know, it's...
Oh, let's just focus on the... if it comes up in production, then, you know, we'll mention it, but... Yeah, what we watched seemed to be the sane ordering.
Yes, this because this is not a bad episode, but wow, why in the world would this be the first one? That is very strange.
You don't. Well, I mean, there might be something like that contradicts what I'm saying, but the idea of making your debut Batman show to be the origin of Catwoman, like that would be weird.
Yeah.
You know, it's like she kind of gets more screen time or more attention than Batman does, you know, just because it is her story. I mean, it's called The Cat and the Claw, it's not called The Bat and the Claw.
Right.
Weird stuff. I mean, you know, at least Man-Bat didn't get like a massive origin, and it's all focused primarily on Batman. And also, you know, the fact that he was being mistaken for the Man-Bat let you develop him a bit more. So, yeah. Anyway, Catwoman. Pretty different from the other Catwomen we've seen. You got like generally so with the exception of who was at the time like the most kind of recent screen one, you had like the Michelle Pfeiffer crazy Catwoman from Batman Returns.
Yeah.
But ignoring that, most Catwomen we've seen have usually been kind of operating operating out of a red light district, from what I can tell, most of the time.
Right.
It was in the Batman, was in Year One. I think in Dark Knight Rises, she was living in like an apartment, but she was just like a cat burglar. This one, she's kind of a wealthy person. What's she do again? I can't remember. She's just like independently wealthy, and she supported a bunch of like cat sanctuaries and nature preserves, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. She's very ecocentric.
Yeah, but like I always thought she should have like a dynamic with Poison Ivy, but that'll be Harley's thing.
Yeah. I guess in this one she's a little more Bruce Wayne than.
Yeah.
She's
I guess that makes them a good pairing in a way. Like they're kind of similar.
She
doing the
also
same
has,
thing.
Like, what was her name? Holly, that character we kept expecting. She has her own equivalent of that character too. Maven, who's like her secretary or something.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
Maven.
She shows up a few times. Anytime Catwoman.
Another one, Holly surrogate. You could always have like like how many Holly surrogates are there?
Very weird.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm struggling to remember the plot. I know they had their own OC villain, the Red Claw. Who's like this. I think they presume it's a man, and then turns out to be a lady. She's kind of. She kind of makes me think of like we have Talia al Ghul at home. Like she kind of does similar stuff to Talia, but she's not like a noteworthy character outside of this.
The show handles sexism in a very strange way. I'm just gonna say that outright. Like, it's very it's just like, oh, I expect to be a man. Is like, well, I.
Yeah, she makes a point of that. She is very kind of. This is kind of a girl power thing going on when she's first introduced, and she's like, oh, can't believe you were beaten by a woman, eh? And Batman's just like, I don't really care.
I don't discriminate. I mean, but sure.
Doesn't he say like he doesn't? I'm sure. I don't know if it's this episode or maybe another one. It's like I'm an equal opportunities like crime fighter or something.
Yeah. It's just like they just handle it kind of strangely, but.
Yeah, a little clunky, but yeah, it's a kind of a relic of the era, I guess.
I think heart's in the right place, at the very least. I'll say that much.
It's not the Killing Joke. But yeah, she's kind of lame, Red Claw.
Yeah.
Like just yeah. Should have used. I don't know if it would have worked, but like I would have. You probably could have used Talia here, but she also has, when Talia does appear, she kind of has this. You know, is she a good guy, is she a bad guy thing, and I guess unleashing a plague on the world, you couldn't really have her doing that. Anyway, but she's a bit too similar to Talia for my taste.
Yeah. Catwoman, that's the thing is, I don't remember specifics on this one, I just remember a lot of just, because we wrote down it was a good episode.
I think we should have written more. Here's the problem, if we're like engrossed in an episode, we kind of forget to write notes.
Yeah.
So sometimes we'll have like a high-ish rating, and then there's like nothing about it there.
Yeah. We wrote more gags about her cat Isis than we did about what was actually going on in the episode.
Who was voiced by Frank Welker.
Of course. Oh man, but I just remember a lot of good banter between Bruce and Selina.
I do. Oh yeah, another thing I remember about Isis is that we found it kind of funny that they're dealing with a terrorist organization. She has a cat called Isis, which is kind of weird in retrospect.
Yeah. Boy, oh boy. But no, I just remember it being a lot of good dialogue in this one. Like it's one of those things where it isn't so much for the story as it is just like a lot of character dynamic. Remember, like, because I think. It's kind of weird where, like, Bruce is in love with Selina, Selina's in love with Batman, and they don't know each other or each other. Well, no, actually, no, Bruce does know that Selina is Catwoman, but not vice versa.
Yeah.
So, but I remember there's just a lot of good dialogue in this one. I remember this one just being fun, but not in like a plot sort of way, just a character building sort of way. So that I'm pretty sure is why we put it in an A, because it was just an entertaining episode.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. From what I can remember of it, definitely the Batman Catwoman dynamic is very strong. That was the highlight from what I remember. So, but not gonna lie, I can't remember much else happened. There's like something on a train. That's a really good review when I struggle to remember it, and I admit it.
That's part 2.
Oops. Let's go. We put A. I'm sure I trust myself on the facts. I'm sure I had a good reason for that. I sure wasn't like drugged up or something when I came up with that. So we put it in A.
Put it in A. Guess we can't put it at the top because we can't remember why we liked it, but
that's not good. But yeah, we must have been enjoying it if we failed to write down that many notes.
I think it was. So. I think it was just genuinely just dialogue. I think it was just a lot of good banter, just a lot of fun.
Sometimes that's all you need. I mean, I remember that elevated Dark Knight Rises for me was Catwoman's banter.
Yeah,
with
that's
Batman.
True. Yeah, that's where that movie actually seemed like it was okay for a while.
Yeah, up to that point, yeah. So then we get part 2. Now this one, I apparently forgot about the train bit, which should have read this first. But I do remember the finale at the hangar factory. Yeah.
Building.
Yeah, I remember it so well. I can't even say what it was, but no, I can picture it a bit better. And here's the problem, right? I can't remember the particulars of the plot. I remember they get captured together, and I remember the finale is them breaking out of it, and Batman needs to destroy the plague. Like, you know, containment's not an issue. He needs to just eradicate it. So he triggers an explosion for that.
Yeah, the villain's plot is that she has a plague of some sort, like just a deadly virus and like a vial, and if it gets out, it's just like the world's worst shit.
Yeah. The world gets diarrhea.
It's just Radical 6 or whatever.
The big shit. No. Yeah, it's to stop a plague, which comes up in the other Catwoman episode for some reason. So I remember now. Her rocket-powered. The Red Claw like uses this what looks like a roller skate with a rocket to get on the train. You only see it like incredibly briefly, but I just thought that was pretty weird looking.
I'm not gonna lie, half of these are just like just shitting on the episode, but then we wrote down A, so apparently it was pretty good. I guess it's just the dynamic between the two, because it's not being held up by the plot.
I forgot they were like dating as well. Like they're going out. We really fumbled the ball on this one. Yeah, she gets attacked by the Red Claws people, or it's like the crime boss, and so Bruce is driving like out of costume and he has to evade the assassins. Yeah, I think they're trying to kill her, right? To avoid the assassins, and that's quite a fun scene because they're trying to maintain their secret identities, and she's just like, "Where do you learn to do that?"
Right.
So I remember that scene being quite enjoyable. It was a little bit different. It was nice having an action set piece that didn't involve the costumed Bruce and Selena. This is the Black Cat episode.
Yes, this is the episode where Alfred sees a stray hair on one of like Bruce's like jackets or something, or maybe it was the bat suit. But either way, he finds a stray hair and he's like, "I've never seen hair this color before," and it's just fur from a black cat. I think it's from ISIS.
Yeah, I think he explicitly says like, "I've never seen a cat this color before." It's like it's like Batman. Yeah, his Batman's like, it's cat hair. He says, yes, but I've never seen a cat this color before. It's just black.
It's just black.
It's like what? Like what?
I also
like I don't know. Did something happen? Like did they write that line and then they decided to change the color of Isis? Like maybe Isis was purple or something? I don't know. But that was really weird. What a strange line.
Yeah, like they wanted to draw attention to it, but they were just like, I don't know. He thinks it looks weird. It's very strange. There's also the last note there. There's this shot. Maven is the again the secretary character, and she wears glasses, and she can't see a thing without her glasses. So at one point, somebody comes to assassinate her, and then Batman saves her, and she like fumbles, drops her glasses, and then there's a POV shot of her putting her glasses on, and then during the same shot, she walks into frame. Like from the side of the screen. It's bizarre.
It reminds me of the pilot episode of Futurama where Bender's lost both of his arms and then he puts both of them on and Fry just says, How did you do that? But this is like that, but it's not played for laughs. It's like the glasses go on to the camera and then she walks into the frame and you're like, well, hang on, what am I thought I was looking through her eyes. Weird.
Yeah, but
really funny.
But like, not like she walks in front of the camera. She walks in from the side. Like
Yeah.
It's so odd looking. Apparently, at some point, Bruce Wayne talks with Batman's voice, which is like the reverse of what we saw in the first episode. I don't remember that, but it is always funny to see that, hear it, I guess. But apparently, we like this episode. I guess.
Only so, sure.
I don't remember it, but...
Oops.
Sure.
Yeah.
That'll...
Yeah. Gotta fumble this one a bit, eh? We did watch it. We know we... Thank God we did preliminary tears. Sorry.
We know we liked it, so...
Yeah, thank God we did, like, initial tier things.
Right, yeah.
Because otherwise we'd be really stumped.
We really would have.
Thank God we did notes at all. At least we did some notes. Otherwise, I really wouldn't have a clue. Like, what's this? Catwoman, I think. Who's the Claw? Oh, you mean Frank Welker? ISIS?
How's part 1? Well, we said we liked it. How's part 2? Well, we said it's like part 1, so it's good.
and I attributed several things from part 2 to part 1.
Oh, God.
I also remember, like, who's the Claw? Do we mean from Inspector Gadget? And then we found out Frank Welker voices the cat in this episode, so that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Let's move on before we dig ourselves into a bigger hole. Right, this one I definitely do remember. See No Evil.
Yeah, See No Evil, episode 17. This one is about a guy with an invisibility costume, like suit, like a cloaking suit, and he visits his daughter at night because him and his wife are divorced. So
she has a restraining order.
Yes.
Because he's a criminal.
And so he shows up invisible and acts like her imaginary friend or whatever, and actually like talks to her and just hangs out with her basically.
I like that. It's pretty creepy.
Yeah. It's like creepy, but it's also like believable. Like it's very grounded. The only unrealistic thing is just there's invisible stuff. But
yeah, I mean, sure, but right. So yeah, I want to acknowledge that quickly because they do a good job with that. Because invisibility is always kind of going to be OP, especially for like Batman or someone. Because if you think invisibility exists in this world, then damn, Batman should probably get in on that. That'd be useful. Like stealth camouflage in Metal Gear. That's always the top unlockable. But they do make a point in this that it's the plastic is toxic and will actually drive you insane. So they do actually. So that serves two purposes. That's like saying why this guy is unstable or increasingly unstable, and also it's a little small justification. Like nobody says it explicitly out loud, but they're like, it's sort of like why doesn't Batman use this? Oh, that's a pretty good reason.
Yeah, it's experimental.
So I appreciate that. Yeah.
And I also really like, we both noticed that Batman is actually very smart in his first encounter with the guy. Like, it happens at the beginning of the episode. Like, the guy robs a store and, like, jewelry store or whatever, and then Bruce Wayne runs into a bathroom, and then Batman comes out. And,
Yeah, that was a little weird. That was like, as far as I know, that was only door in and out, so I don't know, it was quite a public place as well. But then again, the criminal also decided to use his invisibility powers in the middle of a crowded store, so I don't know who's dumber there. But there's a lot of commotion going on.
But yeah, like, they get into a fight, and then Batman, like, immediately knows, like, how to deal with it, but then the villain outsmarts him anyway. So, like, it doesn't make him incompetent, is the thing that I like, is that it out of the gate, he's like, oh, I have tricks, I don't know how to get around this, but then the guy's like, nope, I anticipated that. So, it's,
What does he do, like, throw paint or something? I remember him in a construction yard or something.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, because most of I feel like a lesser show, it would have been just being the protagonist spending ages trying to figure out, oh god, what's happening here, or how do I deal with this, and then they accidentally spill paint on them, or it starts raining, or, you know, yeah, we've seen this trope before.
Yeah.
But Batman's just like immediately like, oh, he's invisible. He's invisible, that's what's the matter with him. So he throws some paint on him. And I really appreciate that. He counters it. I think he has like some electric thing that kind of gets rid of the paint, or I think it might even like make the paint invisible itself. You know, because that's just how it works. I think it was paint. I'm pretty sure it was paint or something like that. Some liquid. Or was it cement?
There was cement was involved too, but I remember that was the second appearance of pink paint specifically.
Oh yes, pink paint. Yes, he didn't have his on his belt. He didn't have to use it. That's right, because he usually keeps it in POV. He keeps it in his utility belt, but this time he's like, oh damn, I bought this especially, and I didn't even need it. How embarrassing. But yeah, so yeah, it's a small thing. But I feel like in a lesser show, you would have spent half the episode trying to figure that out. But he just does it immediately, like, you know, world's greatest detective.
Yeah.
So, and then like the plot is just some creep who's trying to see his wife and daughter, and that I feel like this episode would have been like a C or something if it wasn't for that stalker gimmick. But it's just the visuals as well of him creeping in and out of his daughter's window. It's really effective, and the panic the mother has.
Yeah.
It kind of takes it quite seriously. The restraining order is quite believable as well. Like, he sees her in public, and you know, she's not like running off terrified. She's just like, you know, it just makes it apparent he's not welcome.
Yeah.
It's just the way this is handled. It's way better than it should have been on paper.
Yeah. On paper, this is a really boring sort of just a guy with an invisible suit. How we get around that? But no, everything around it makes it interesting and unique. It's all very specific to this episode, and it just ended up working for that reason.
The conclusion's pretty funny as well. I mean, it's not like ha funny, but basically they have a fight in a drive. What do you call it? Not drive-through, a drive-in movie theater. Yeah. And the bad guy gets in a car, and he can extend the power of his suit to make the whole car invisible. So Batman's wrestling on top of a visible car, and actually they do make a joke about it, because it's just very funny in animation.
Yeah.
You just see Batman flying down the street, and I think there's like some homeless guy, and he just looks over and goes, I didn't know he could fly. It's just really funny to watch, and that's another highlight of this episode. Like, this episode on paper just sounds very stock. It could have been very forgettable. Who's our villain? Just some like rando who has invisibility. Like, okay, we'll come up with something. But they did a great job with it. This was like a real surprise for us.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah. We rated it A. You really liked it?
Yeah, we did. Where does that go?
I don't know if it should go above the other two.
Yeah, I'll leave. I feel like Heart of Ice is too artsy. Like, even if we didn't like the revenge plot, it's still a very artsy.
Yeah, that's
nice looking episode. So yeah, I think that's fine.
That's perfect. I have noticed a bit of a trend here, and I'm actually getting a little worried. We have not seen an S tier episode so far.
No.
Um,
I guess this show just isn't that good.
I mean, yeah, like
We'll just call it quits.
What is it?
Batman the Animated Series, overrated. We've said it.
I'm just saying, what does it take for an episode of this show to go into S tier?
It takes something real special, maybe some sort of meta narrative, maybe some really good casting, maybe really leaning into the sort of film noir look. But I don't know. I just guess that's just never gonna happen here. I'm disappointed.
Oh,
What's the next episode?
it's something called Beware the Grey Ghost.
Who's that?
I think he's just some one-off for this show. Had like some stunt casting for his voice. So
Right, so
they wrote an episode about Adam West being typecast as Batman, and it's really, really good.
yeah,
It's incredible. Like, not only is that premise really fun, there's a lot of really good shots, like a lot of flashbacks to young Bruce Wayne watching television, and a lot of like the way they've drawn it is just really interesting. And meanwhile, there's this plot going on that is it's literally like a character. His name is Simon Trent, and he is like, he used to be basically what 60s Batman was, like a old time sort of comic book hero on television, and he was an actor for the character of the Grey Ghost, and then he just couldn't get work because everyone just associates him with that show. And while Bruce Wayne is like, he was my hero, and I used to love that show, and he's a bigger inspiration for what I do. And then suddenly, some crimes start happening, like some explosions start going off, and they're identical to an episode of The Grey Ghost. And so in order to figure out, what the villain is going to do next, he has to go find the episode of the show and watch it. But the film reel didn't survive, I believe. Like, it went up in a fire, I think. And
they never release they make a point they never release on home media.
Right, and so they have to. So he's like, well, if I can't get the show, I'll get the actor, because he'll know what to do. If anybody, he'll know. And there's the sort of back and forth where he's just like, can you help me on this? And the guy's just like, no, I'm sick of being, in the Grey Ghost shadow. Like, I don't want to. Yeah,
I'm just an actor. Like, leave me alone.
Yeah.
He can't pay his rent. He's he can't get roles. He's having a hard time, and he's very reluctant to help Batman. He's like, he feels like he's being harassed.
I actually forget what can. I think it's just the idea of him being the inspiration for Batman. Like, Batman actually saying, like, you are the reason that I do this, or you're a big inspiration for me. And he eventually turns around and he's like, he just puts on the costume again, and they just like team up. And it's a really, really, really good bit. And then it turns out the villain, who it's like at the very end, like it's just shoved in at the very end because so much of it is the setup for it. But that's that's the main point of it, really.
So Simon Trent's the main character.
Yeah. And at the very end, it's like, it's Bruce Timm. He's the villain. He's like this pawn shop owner. What was it? Like he bought all the
Mad Bomber.
Yeah,
he's called.
Yeah, the Mad Bomber. He bought all the merch from Simon Trent, and then he used that to recreate these scenes. And then very briefly, Batman's just like, wait a second, the only person who would have all this stuff is you.
Yeah.
He actually like accused him.
To be fair, I think it's Adam West who realizes that. He's like, the only person the only other person who had these was, it's him. And like his justification, it's not too elaborately evil, and it's just like, toys are expensive, collecting toys are expensive, and I just remember seeing an episode of this show, and that honestly seemed to work pretty well. I remember a toy can carry a bomb.
Right.
So it's not really about the villain. It's quite amusing that Bruce Timm cast himself in this, or I presume that was his doing, but I mean, again, like most of the show, he's well cast as well. He kind of fits it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the real star of this is Adam West, who is just. I think about down here, like if it wasn't Adam West, it wouldn't be nearly as meaningful. But man, and it's just his performance as well. You know, because his character's probably about the same age he was at the time, and it is kind of a story about himself. How after the '60s show, he struggled to get other roles because everyone just always saw him as Batman. He was like forever typecast. He found it hard to get work. And it's so good. It's not just that. It's also these like this fictional show within a show, The Grey Ghost. Like they do this sort of like black and white cuts whenever they're showing the show within show or Bruce's childhood.
Yeah.
And it's just so good. Like this all because the animated series is already quite like oldie timey, you know, the Art Deco stuff. But then any scenes with the Grey Ghost really like lean into that. That's when they dial up the sort of 1930s vibes up to like 11. You know, characters like the Phantom, like really like. And these are characters that also sort of made their debut around about the same time Batman did in real life. It's just a great show within a show, and it's just a really good story. And the ending is perfect as well, where Batman sort of reveals his identity but doesn't. He just says the exact same line he said while in costume, and this is a very subtle thing where Simon sort of just twigs who he is, and it's just, with a little sort of knowing smile. This episode is so good.
Absolutely.
Mm.
I think that pretty much, if you can't tell from that explanation, I don't know what to tell you. That is an S tier episode right there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a thoroughly solid, just a fun premise, but a very meaningful one. And
I think us having watched the '66 movie quite recently as well also helped that.
yeah, honestly.
Just because the Adam West was still kind of in our minds a bit more, you know. In fact, I feel like I may not have been as. I always liked this episode, but pre me watching the '60s movie, you know, like I always appreciated the '60s show, but when we watched it together, I was like, you know, it is really good. It is really entertaining. So I think that also helped this in our ranking as well. Having seen that recently.
Absolutely, for sure.
Mm.
I mean, and Adam West is just a really good actor. Like,
yeah, his voice is great.
yeah, he's perfect. Like, he was great in that show, and he's great in this one too. And it is funny, like looking back on that, it's like that. It kind of sucks that he had to go through that because he is talented. But
yeah.
Oh man, it's just an incredible show, or incredible episode of the show.
It is, yeah. Alright, so Prophecy of Doom.
I love the whiplash we keep going through.
I mean, that saying that is like it's set up for this being like
Is that one
Batman.
Of the
No, this is not. No, it's not. We're not going from Batman in My Basement to Heart of Ice. but yeah, so Prophecy of Doom. This is the one where there is a cult, and they're basically conning wealthy people into, was it like making a sort of a pot of money with this guy Nostromo's to be in charge of it.
Yeah.
And then he's basically just conning them out of their money. That's kind of it. It's quite funny.
Yeah,
At least it is in the first half.
He's like, oh, I have prophecies, and then he hires, or he has his henchmen, like, basically make those things come true. He's like, oh, something dire is going to happen to Bruce Wayne, and then at one point he's in, like, the elevator in his, in, like, the Wayne building.
Mm-hmm.
And it, they, like,
oh yeah, there's a guy doing repairs on it. The guy fixed the elevator, and he's like, I didn't know it needed fixing.
Right. And, that's...
Yeah. So yeah, I only kind of mentioned half of that. Yeah, they make prophecies usually regarding, you know, things going wrong, and then they'll sabotage it so it comes true, and that, you know, that often involves people almost dying. So, you know, that's no good. So it's not just in case conning people out the money isn't bad enough.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think there was also stuff like, what was like his teacup like explodes or whatever. He had like a cup of coffee at the meeting, and then it just explodes like, it's crazy.
Oh yeah, yeah. One of my favorite things about this episode is that in order to infiltrate them, Bruce goes along with it, and it's quite funny because I think he has like a friend, and she's just like, "I can't believe you're falling for this," and he's just kind of like wants to explain, like, "No, no, I'm just doing it to trick them," and he can't say that, and he has to go along with it. So that's quite fun because he's being a billionaire, he's one of the targets, so
Yeah.
that's quite fun. I enjoyed seeing that. Unfortunately, where this episode falls apart is where you get to the final act, which feels like half an hour of this extended fight in the planetarium.
Yeah, it's just really long. It was, I believe this is their ACOM one, because
Was it?
I believe
Right.
so. I remember that other video I mentioned talked about this as well. Like, just a lot of weird modeling and stuff going on as they're fighting like inside these like fake planets.
Like fiberglass things hanging from the ceiling.
Yeah, yeah, and they're just spinning around, and it's like, yeah, a lot of fun ideas in this episode, but it ended up being just kind of drawn out and just dumb.
Yeah, it's that I feel like that finale. It was just a confusing mess. Like it looked weird. It wasn't particularly well animated. It's not even just that it was like animated badly. It's just conceptually odd that they can fight on these fiberglass things. I can't imagine a particularly sturdy, and then they're getting punched from one to another. It's just weird, and it goes on for way too long. And the actual obviously Nostromos isn't really a physical threat, so he just like his partner in crime just happens to be like jacked, and that's how you just get your physical
Yeah,
antagonist.
the fight
That's it.
it's just like, oh, it's just a big burly dude fighting Batman. That's it. It's not even like
Yeah, like
the villain. It's his henchman.
Yeah, this is the sort of plot that would have been really good to have Batman outsmarting them. Like, say, if he was exposed as a fraud. Like, say, if he was giving some public thing to his followers, and then rather than just beat the shit out of him, instead of that, like, why doesn't he, like, trick him into accidentally making a fool of himself and then realizes that he's a fraud? Like, that would be more meaningful than just having a fight. You know?
Yeah, yeah. That the execution of the finale, like the third act, is just people throwing punches and throwing each other through fake planets. That's the long and short of it. Just it is an
The ending's
episode of the
lame.
show. Yeah, that's
No, but everything leading up to that is quite fun. I like the concept, but
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It didn't pay off. It nah. That's all I got.
the character kind of reminded me of from Iron Man 3. I always forget his name.
The Mandarin.
The Mandarin. Yeah, yeah. Who I know everyone hates that, but I always thought it was quite amusing and kind of. I like the idea of a fraud, so like someone who comes across as like a big like kind of supervillain kind of thing, but he's just some actor like that. I think that's very amusing. But yeah, this didn't really do a lot with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
How low on C is that?
I really do like the first half. I would put that above The Forgotten.
I was gonna say that actually. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because I do like that first half, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it definitely it has an interesting idea and it falls off so hard whenever it becomes just Batman fights a guy for way too long.
Yeah.
So,
Feet of Clay.
Feet of Clay is Clayface. He's an actor, and he becomes addicted to a face cream that like allows you to morph your face. Very
Yeah, so what I understand is he had, like, I think they said he had a car accident, and they use this experimental face cream stuff that kind of turns your face into like a putty, and you can use that for regenerative purposes. And then I don't know if it's a side effect, but you can also use it to just remodel your face. And I think originally here, before he gets overdosed and stuff, you have to like use your hands to physically change it.
Yeah.
And as an actor, you can use that to take on different roles. But the episode actually opens with Lucius Fox going to meet Bruce Wayne, who then tries to kill him. Which is a bit out of character for Bruce Wayne, and it turns out later on that it's Hagen impersonating him.
A bit out of character. It's a little
Yeah,
weird.
but he doesn't. He only murders so many people. Not Lucius, that's his friend. Yeah. So this first part is really concerned with Bruce, like Batman, trying to figure out who's impersonating him, which is quite interesting because that plot it isn't ignored in part 2, but that's very much the focus of this first part, because this part Hagen doesn't actually have the Clayface persona. Like the episode ends with him. He's addicted to this face cream. It sounds weird when you say it out loud, but he's addicted to face cream. He breaks into a lab to get it. So it's supplied by Roland Daggett, who we'll see multiple times. He's like another. He's kind of like I wouldn't say he's a crime boss. He's more of a criminal businessman. He has like he's more legitimate than say your Thorn, but anyway, so he breaks into a lab to get this stuff he's addicted to. His two henchmen stop him. There's this great moment where he tries to impersonate Bruce Wayne. Like, he's got his back turned to them and he goes, "Oh, I'm just Bruce Wayne." And they're just like, "Yeah, no, we're not fucking stupid. Like, how stupid do you think we are?" Like, you kind of, like, again, from a lesser cartoon, they'd probably be like, "Bruce Wayne, what are you doing here?" But they're just like, "No, we're not idiots." That was mostly just to kind of show the audience that, he was definitely the one impersonating Wayne, if that wasn't obvious already.
Right.
I love that moment. So they pin him down and then they pour all his shit over his face and he completely overdoses on it. And it culminates in him not being able to control the putty-like flesh, and then he becomes this horrible monster.
They don't pour it on his face. They pour it in his mouth. They force feed him like gallons of the stuff.
Okay.
In order to, I think that's like they're a way to kill him. Like they just straight up say like, "Oh, this is how we finish him off."
Yeah.
But,
no, they were definitely like, "No, we'll heal you up." No, they were definitely trying to kill him. But yeah, my point is that we don't get full blown Clayface in part 1. It's a bit like Two-Face, like the Two-Face two-parter. We don't, you don't get the full transformation until the last shot. Yeah. And I feel like that negatively affects this episode because the two henchmen are quite interesting. Daggett's men. There's one who's always listening to police band radios on his earpiece, and then there's another one who's a complete germaphobe called Germs. And so they've got a bit more character than usual. But unfortunately, Batman spends most of the episode in the finale chasing this one guy who listens to the radio. And what he does is because there's no Clayface yet, like that's the best thing we've got for a finale. So he spends like a ridiculous amount of time and resources chasing this one henchman, including getting the Batwing to impale a car he's sitting in and fly it over the river. Like it's such a massive. It feels like the final set piece for an animated Batman movie, not part 1 of the show, and certainly not a treatment for a random henchman. Like this is like even the Joker wouldn't get this kind of attention. It just seemed massively over the top for what he was doing. And if I remember correctly, he doesn't even learn anything from it. He gets I think he passes out, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he passes out before he says anything actually useful.
Yeah, so it's like, and then Batman's just like, well, that was a waste of time. And it kind of felt like a waste of time watching it as well. I mean, it was a cool scene, but it just seemed a bit much for
because it's the climax of an episode. It feels very jarring that it's just some guy it doesn't really actually culminate in anything new. Like,
No.
nothing really comes of it. It's just how the episode had to end because it was broken into 2 parts. So
That's just how it goes sometimes, yeah. Yeah, this is definitely a very good reminder of... And then the stuff with Hagen is, like, way more interesting, honestly, than Batman's investigation. Him trying to catch up with Hagen. I also think, like, the Bruce impersonation thing is... It's not, like, overly interesting. It's not uninteresting, but it's not... I'd rather spend more time with Hagen. And this is a big reminder why we're splitting up 2-parters on the tier list, because this is definitely not as good as part 2. This is kind of the inverse of the Two-Face one.
yeah, for sure. So we put this one B.
Yeah.
It was fine. It was good, but
That look alright?
yes, absolutely. That's yeah.
Say that's slightly worse than Two-Face Part 2, because Two-Face Part 2 was still rolling with the characterization from Part 1, so it was still good.
Yeah.
This one just feels a lot more unfocused.
Yeah, it's a lot of establishing, but not a lot of payoff. Like I think that's a reason why the climax feels so weird, is because there's not any real payoff to what's going on. It's just a lot of establishing for part 2, which we should talk about now, because it is maybe my favorite episode of the show.
Oh wow, okay, I didn't know that, but hey, I'm fine with that.
Maybe. I mean, honestly,
I don't know if I have a favorite. I guess
Right.
we're gonna have to rank these horizontally, I suppose. So I'll have to come up with one, but it's damn good.
This is the episode I remember most of from when I watched it as a kid. Like, I basically remember nothing, but there were several scenes in this that I'm like, I remember this. Like, wow, I remember that bit. Like, it's incredibly good. So this is another one drawn by the very anime team. I don't know if there's multiple or just the one, but this is another very, like, heavily well-animated episode. And, like, some of my favorite shots in the entire series, for sure, come from this episode. Like, the interrogation with germs. And just,
that bit is amazing.
That whole bit is amazing. Just so many scenes with Clayface, like, transforming and just going into all sorts of different shapes. Like, they had to get someone good to animate that, because it was...
Thank God it wasn't ACOM. Jesus.
Oh my god. I mean, honestly, I would say that the animation studio could have broken this episode. They could have actually made it terrible. But the one that they got, made it one of the best episodes
they got priorities right. Yeah, no, they were like, I guess they realized that given the nature of Clayface, we need our A-team on this, like the best animators on this one, just because of the nature of his power and what he's doing. So just to quickly surmise the plot, because he's now a monster and he's a freak. Like, he can't even go out in public anymore. He's just an actual monster. But then he gradually realizes that he can sort of become he can become human and even just make clothes out of his skin using his powers, which you think, oh, he'd be fine now. But my favorite description in this is like, he says it's like tensing a muscle, so he can do it, but it's an effort, and he can't just keep it up.
Right.
So he vows revenge on Daggett, and it's a brilliant scene where, because he's like a businessman, he's part of this I don't want to say talk show, but it's like I suppose it's sort of like a promotional talk show or something.
Oh yeah.
It's open to the public, and then there's this woman who starts like ranting and raving at him about like side effects and everything, and then you realize that's Clayface. Like, that's a fantastic scene. this confrontation, and they just morphs in front of the crowd and everyone starts panicking. That's a really good moment. Like, what's the stuff I heard about the side effects? Like, it's addictive, and then it sort of morphs into Ron Perlman's voice. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And by the way, Ron Perlman does a great job here. It's quite a contrast to his performance in Payday 2. I'll say that. Say that much. A bitch ass dozer. It's a cloaker.
Oh, that left such a bad taste in our mouth. Holy shit.
Yeah. So yeah, and then also, as you mentioned earlier, the confrontation with Germs, who's a germaphobe. He has to get Hagen in the hospital. He's very reluctant to go in the hospital. It's all of those diseases. And this is one of the best interrogations in the whole show, because it's not usually just Batman scaring people into confessions. I guess he realized it doesn't work after the previous part. I just kind of thought of that now, because he made someone pass out.
Right.
It's like, I'll be more subtle. And so he pins him in this like quarantine area where they have like these samples of viruses, and he keeps punching a wall, so a shelf rattles and a jar sort of edges towards the edge, and I forget what he says, like scarlet rot or something, or scarlet fever. Scarlet rot is from yeah, nasty way to go. It's not scarlet rot. That's from Elden Ring. Yeah, and then when he eventually just punches it down, catches it, and then you just see seawater for analysis. It's such a good scene. And then that goes straight, like, because that scene wasn't good enough. It goes straight into a fight with Clayface, who's still kind of mastering his powers. And the animation, like this wasn't so well animated. It'd probably be like a B.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's still good, but like if the animation wasn't on point, a bit like Scarecrow's design in his first episode, because his design is so silly, it brings everything down. If this animation wasn't so good, that would have brought everything down. But no, it's absolutely on par. And then it culminates in Batman reminding Hagen of his different roles, and he lures him into a TV. And he did set this up prior. It's not just random. He has all these screens depicting his different performances, and he involuntarily. This is another thing they set up early on. Like, it's really well done. Like, he'll see something and he sort of involuntarily transform, and he's looking at all these TVs and he's just freaking out. And it is the single best piece of animation in the entire show, where he's just constantly switching between these different personas frantically, and he's spinning around, and he's losing his mind, and he can't control it, and it is an absolute spectacle. It's incredible. It's one of the best scenes in the whole show. And it's another good thing as well. Like, Batman defeats him through a clever means. He doesn't just beat up the bad guy. This has got like all of the marks of a good Batman episode. You've got a sympathetic villain who's justified what they're doing. Your clever action. So like the interrogation in the hospital isn't just him like threatening someone. Like, it's cleverly done. It's funny as well. And then you've got a villain being defeated through an interesting means, rather than just being beaten up. And there's a little cliffhanger at the end as well, saying, Clayface will return. Kinda.
Oh yeah.
Just everything in this episode hits perfectly.
I almost kind of wish it was like a movie. Like, even the the Phantasm movie, it doesn't. I don't even remember it looking as good as this episode does. I
mean, to be fair though, like, this had like less to animate. Like, this is a 22-minute episode.
Fair, yeah.
And also, like, Phantasm wasn't doing anything this crazy.
Right.
Like,
I guess my point is just, like, it was impressive enough that it does remind me of, like, it could have been a feature-length film, and that would have been just one of my favorite things. Like, it is an incredible episode. It's like you said, like, it isn't just that it looks good. It's everything's well established. Like, everything leads into the next scene very, very well, and it's way too good.
Yeah, it's kind of a shocker that first part is just not as good, but
yeah. I think
you could. Here's the thing, right? I always feel like you could watch this in a bubble, because like that part one really just sets up the Bruce Wayne impersonation thing, which doesn't really amount to that much. I mean, it's a little bit of a mystery, but most of Dagger's origin is actually in this episode. Like, he has a flashback. Like, this is the big flashback where we see exactly what happened to him. That's not in part 1. Like, his visit to the hospital. That's part 2. So I think that it's like the biggest problem with this episode is that it's kind of tied with one that's not nearly as good, but it's still damn good.
Yeah.
You know,
that's the worst you could say about it. You know, that's an S tier right there.
Yeah, it is.
I'm a little torn on where it would go, but I am willing to put Grey Ghost in front. I think
yeah, that's a hard call.
That's very hard.
That's very difficult. They're good in different ways.
They are, and
maybe. All right. So I'm just saying this just to get us out of this lock. I would maybe say Grey Ghost is better just because Feet of Clay requires you to watch a B-tier episode as well.
Right, yeah.
Whereas Grey Ghost is good on its own. I think I use that kind of logic with this, like, I think a movie or two, but yeah. I'm not saying that's automatically better. I'm just trying to get us out of this lock where it's really hard to decide.
That's at least a reasoning. Like, I don't think you need. We can just say, like, they are both very, very
anything
good.
S. Just watch everything in S tier. If we put it in S tier, it's worth watching.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you can also. I also want to cover my back here. I also want to say you could very easily watch Feet of Clay Part 2 and not watch Part 1. You're still going to understand what's happening. It's not. I don't mean when I say it's tied to a weaker episode. It doesn't mean that you won't be like, oh, what's going on? I don't understand. My brain hurts. Like, if you don't watch Part 1, like, you can still watch Part 2 by itself. But I'm just trying to give at least one vague reason why, I don't know, you might put Grey Ghost ahead, because you can just watch Grey Ghost as it is and there's no catch.
And Grey Ghost is just like such a clever idea for an episode.
Mm-hmm.
Just a slight bit more, I'd say. But
yeah,
they're both incredible and easy recommendations.
Good.